Good morning, I'm Maki Malapo. The National Student Financial Aid Scheme says it will finally make delayed payments to accommodation providers by the end of next week. Some students are reportedly facing eviction after ANSFAS failed to pay their landlords this year. The scheme says the process was delayed because of its verification processes for both students and accommodation providers. ANSFAS says that during the checks, officials identified ghost students who were neither funded by ANSFAS nor enrolled in any public institution or college. It will also investigate landlords who would have benefited from fraudulent payments. Here's ANSFAS spokesperson Ishmael Mnisi.
At this point, ANSFAS is adhering to the payment dates of April the 4th, 2025. However, we are continuously assessing our internal processes and the situation surrounding the payments. Should it become possible to expedite this payment date, we will promptly communicate any changes with all stakeholders, including accommodation providers and students.
ANSFAS is appealing to landlords to be more patient while it resolves the issue.
We therefore appeal to landlords with outstanding payments not to evict students because ANSFAS is committed to resolving all legitimate claims. It is essential to consider the impact of evictions on both students and landlords, particularly during these challenging times.
We move to the courts now, where two suspects arrested in connection with the deaths of 6 community safety patrollers in Soshanguve are set to appear in the Pretoria North Magistrates Court today. A group of patrollers from the Merimi informal settlement were attacked by suspected criminals who stoned and shot them dead over the weekend. 4 other victims who remain hospitalized are under police guard and are witnesses in a police investigation. The suspects, aged 27 and 50, were arrested on Monday in a multidisciplinary operation and were both found in possession of illegal firearms. The pair will appear on charges of murder, attempted murder, possession of unlicensed firearms and ammunition. Staying in the courts, the lawyer of kidnapping and human trafficking accused, Kelly Smith, will continue his cross-examination of the state's main witness in the Jocelyn Smith trial today. Former accused turned state witness Laurentia Lombard became unwell again during cross-examination yesterday and was treated by paramedics before the matter was adjourned for her cross-examination to continue today. Lombard's testimony implicates Kelly and 2 other co-accused for the little girl's disappearance over a year ago. Carlo Peterson has more.
Kelly Smith's lawyer, Ranesh Sivnarayan, was about to start questioning Laurentia Lombard about a statement she made to police after her arrest in March last year when the matter was adjourned. Lombard asked to be excused for the 4th time during proceedings since her cross-examination began just more than a week ago after telling the court she felt lightheaded. She was later seen being attended to by paramedics, prompting Judge Nathan Erasmus to adjourn the matter. Lombard previously testified she witnessed Smith sell Jocelyn to a Sangoma for 20,000 rand. Sivnarayan is expected to provide Smith's version of what happened on the day Jocelyn went missing when the trial resumes today. Carlo Peterson, Eyewitness News, Saldanha Bay.
The new lawyers representing former ANC spokesperson Pule Mabe have been given 3 months to familiarize themselves with the details of his fraud and corruption case. Mabe made his second appearance at the Palm Ridge Magistrates Court yesterday, with prominent defense attorney Zola Majavu now representing the accused ANC member. The charges stem from an alleged improper 27 million rand tender awarded to Mabe's company by the Gauteng Agricultural Department in 2017. Mabe is scheduled to return to court on June 17th for the disclosure of the docket. NPA spokesperson Pindim Jonondwan.
There were new developments in court. Accused number 2 has terminated the mandate of her lawyer, but unfortunately the lawyer was not present to withdraw officially in court, so the court then postponed for that reason. Mr. Mabe and his wife are now represented by Mr. Zola Majavu, as the previous attorney has withdrawn.
Some good news on the power front. The lights will remain on for South Africans, at least for now. Eskom says it has successfully recovered 4 units along with an additional unit from a previous outage, bringing approximately 2,700 megawatts back online. Earlier this week, the power utility warned of a high risk of load shedding due to several generation unit breakdowns. Eskom spokesperson Daphne Mokoena.
This has assisted us to navigate through the peak demand without any system risks. However, while the system is currently stable, it remains constrained up until we recover more generation capacity. Our teams are working tirelessly to ensure this recovery is achieved as soon as possible.
In East Asia, at least 18 people have been killed in one of South Korea's worst wildfire outbreaks. More than a dozen different blazes broke out over the weekend, with the death toll jumping overnight as one major fire tore through villages and burned a historical temple to the ground. The government has raised the crisis alert to its highest level and declared a full-scale national response to bring the fires under control. More than 23,000 people have been evacuated. Gold's trading at $3,025.25 an ounce. The rand's at 18.25 to the dollar, at 23.58 to the pound, at 19.68 to the euro. Brent crude oil's at $73.25 a barrel.
There's bumper-to-bumper traffic on the M1 North between Harton Drive and Corlett Drive. That's due to an accident scene. Please be on the lookout there. The southerly direction of this highway is also affected with delays coming out of the Baklu interchange, while travelling on the N12 West towards the Gilulis interchange, delays from Edenville Road.
In your weather, partly cloudy skies in store for Gauteng today, with scattered showers and thunder showers expected. Temperatures are set to peak at highs of 28 degrees. The top story in Eyewitness News this hour: the National Student Financial Aid Scheme says it will finally make delayed payments to accommodation providers by the end of next week.
EWN, in touch, in tune, and independent. For the latest, visit ewn.co.za or download the EWN app.
You're with Clement Manyathela
On 702.
Let's Walk the Talk, streaming on the Prime Media Plus app,
DSTV channel 856.
92.7 and 106 FM.
Minutes after 9 o'clock. Dumelang. Welcome to the Wednesday edition of the Clement Manyathela Show. It's great to have you with us here on 702. I hope you're well this morning. We start with the 702 open line this hour. Shall we start by congratulating our boys, Bafana, for beating Benin 2-0 yesterday, which means we remain top of the Group C with 13 points.
City's finest. Osman Apollos, really good ball in to Jaden Adams. Hugo Bruce adores it. Jaden Adams scores.
How exciting was that match last night? What this win also means is that our World Cup qualification campaign is fully on track. I'm slightly worried though about the decision to fill Tebogo Mokoena in last week's 2-0 win over Lesotho. We are told now that he was an ineligible player, and some people are suggesting we're likely to be docked 3 points because he received a yellow card in their opening match against Benin and another in the following match against Zimbabwe. And according to FIFA's regulation, a player who accumulates 2 yellow cards in separate matches must serve a 1-match suspension. So Mokoena should not have featured in the Lesotho encounter from what other people are assessing this. But let's not dampen the mood for now. How do you feel about Bafana right now? It's interesting how our posture as South Africans, well, at least some of us, has changed towards Bafana. Someone said yesterday, Bafana and coach Hugo Bruce seem to be a match made in heaven. So we are celebrating the team more these days. And yes, maybe that's because they're winning and performing. But this never used to be how we related with the team. Like, I don't know, 3 years ago or beyond. What do you think of Team Bafana now? And what do you think of our chances as we head towards the World Cup? 011-883-0702. The WhatsApp line is 072-702-1702. Action SA has said no to the ANC. They met with the ANC as the ANC tries to get smaller parties to support the budget. Now, with the DA refusing to support the budget tabled by the finance minister, the ANC is desperate now to find parties that can help get the budget over the line. But that requires 50% plus 1 support in parliament. And with Action SA now saying no to the ANC is at a crossroads. this essentially means 6 votes that could have gone the ANC's way to get the budget to that 50% plus one mark in the National Assembly are now out. Can the ANC still see through this budget with other smaller parties without these 6 votes? I don't see it. I don't know about you. But I do think this must worry you and I as South Africans, because there's that April 2nd deadline on the cards. Government spending and revenue generation proposals have to pass by then. And the ANC still doesn't have support. What does the ANC do now? Give us a call or send us a WhatsApp voice note. At 10 o'clock, we're going to reflect on the instruction that the president gave to the health minister to withdraw those cannabis regulations that Minister Motsoaledi gazetted a few weeks ago. The president is clearly unhappy with the minister's decision to gazette a notice banning the import, manufacturing and sale of any foods containing cannabis and cannabis products without consulting stakeholders first. Now, the president has basically told him to go withdraw those regulations and go consult. The DA and some in the cannabis industry will say, I told you so, Minister. I mean, we had this conversation last week, if you remember, on our Thursday dialogue, where we were asking, is this ban on cannabis and hemp in food products justified? Because the president made a lot of noise about exploring the potential of the cannabis industry in his State of the Nation address. There's a whole master plan which details how the cannabis industry could be worth over 28 billion rand and could create around 130,000 jobs. And then you have such regulations that may stifle the industry and the government, the very same industry that the government is trying to build. And yes, the health department has a responsibility to protect consumers, but there's a way to do it without killing businesses with blanket regulations like that. So that's a conversation we're going to have at 10. At 10:30, we're going to find out who is Leo Brent Bozell III. That's the man that US President Donald Trump has nominated as the new ambassador to South Africa. So we'll speak to a reporter in Washington, D.C., who, by the way, told me this morning, buckle up, Clement, because it's about to get rough. This man's nomination has been referred to the U.S. Senate Committee on Foreign Relations for consideration, but it's expected to be given the green light. But there are interesting things about this man, right? And I'll give you a few quickly, and then David will give you more when we speak to him at 10:30. So this man, who's going to likely, very, 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 very likely, 99% chances that he's going to be the U.S. ambassador to South Africa. His son, listen to this, his son was one of those that were arrested and charged for storming the U.S. Capitol on January 6. This man has described the ANC in the past as pro-communist and terrorists. He has described Barack Obama, when he was president, as a skinny ghetto crackhead. He has actually described Donald Trump before, I think it was during the 2016 campaign ahead of elections. He described Donald Trump as the greatest charlatan of them all. And he said, God help this country if this man were president. That's what he said about Donald Trump back in 2016. And of course, he's a big, big, big supporter of the Israeli government. Not that there's anything wrong with that. It's just an important context to have, given that the US actually wants us to change our position or foreign policy on what's happening in the Middle East. So that's the man who's going to be here to push for US interests. I wonder what you think about that. At 11 o'clock, we're going to do our Listener's Choice feature, and today we'll be looking at the Gaza ceasefire, which hangs in the balance or has failed to hold. One of our listeners has asked that we discuss the latest attacks in Gaza and what that means for that ceasefire that was agreed to recently. So we'll have that chat at 11 o'clock. We're going to wrap up the show at 11:30 with the sharing space. That's the show coming up over the next 3 hours.
Clement Manyathela, streaming on the Prime Media Plus app.
DSTV channel 856,
92.7
and 106 FM.
Hey, morning, Clement. Open for Loras. Yes, Clement, congratulations to the boys, Clement. But however, you are Danny Jordan, suffers whatever top bosses or top brass from payments to fielding players that have yellow cards. We might lose 3 points. SAFA must get their house in order, when at Clement. We are very happy the boys are trying to bring up the nation. The mood is very nice, Clement. We are happy for Bafana. Mara, the management and whoever they are running, no, they must get their things in order. Please. Baskar Kwatisa Clement. We are very happy for these young boys. They are doing something for the nation. They are being patriotic. We are very happy for Coach Hugo Bruce. Mara, SAFA, please get your table in order. Seriously, just these 3 points can mean a lot for us if they can deduct. Thank you, Clement.
Good morning, Clement, and everyone. Regarding Bafana, as a South African, as a nation, we are so proud and happy that we no longer require on calculations and all that to qualify for big tournaments. We are doing it ourselves. We are definitely going to the World Cup. And I'm sure that we're going to win all the remaining 4 games because we are likely to play all the remaining games at home. Due to the fact that Lesotho and Zimbabwe, they play their home games in South Africa. So we are going to play all 4 games in South Africa. And we are definitely going to the World Cup. Nigerians, sorry, you're not going.
Yeah. Benin, Askies, we beat them 2-0 just last night, which means, we've got these 13 points. We remain top of Group C, but also there's a bigger picture here around the World Cup qualification. That campaign for us is in full swing, and it looks like things are looking good for us. So let's keep praying for our boys. 17 minutes after 9.
Your voice,
Your station.
your open line
Walk the talk with Clement Manyathela.
on 702.
Here's another question this morning about just the mess that we're seeing in our courts. Do you think that it's time for civil cases to go through compulsory mediation first before they're enrolled in court for trial? The Gauteng Judge President, Dustin Mlambo, believes that this is what's going to help deal with the civil trial caseload. I mean, the earliest court dates available for civil matters are in 2031. Can you believe that? Because there are so many civil cases that are clogging the system. So we've got too many cases and too few judges. So if civil cases first undergo a mediation process, which is going to be compulsory, before those matters are set for trial, do you think that's something that could work? Because the judge president, and I interviewed him last night on Face the Nation, he said that you would need to produce a mediations report. So you have to go do a mediation, you have to produce a mediations report. If you can't produce that, your matter is going to be struck off the roll. But then there are some people who don't want to go through that process of mediation. In fact, there are some people that have tried to mediate issues outside of the legal system, and they have failed to find a resolution. They have failed to resolve the matters. They are now looking to the court for justice. Are they not going to feel like they're now being forced into mediation, which should be voluntary? I mean, you look at the road accident fund cases, for instance, and this is another side that the judge president mentions as one of the reasons why compulsory mediation is so necessary. You look at the road accident fund cases, they often clog up the system. And the lawyers, I wonder, especially the lawyers who are making it big in road accident fund matters, I wonder if they'll support this directive by the judge president, given how the longer these matters take place in the court system, the better for their bottom line. So please share your thoughts with us about this directive that has been issued by the Gauteng judge president. Do you think that's going to help you being forced into mediation? Any civil matter that you'll be bringing from April, I think it's 16th of April if I'm not mistaken, you have to go through mediation first. Here's what the judge president said last night, just to give you extra context. as you consider whether this is potentially going to work or not?
The scheme we've devised is to use private mediation services. And unfortunately, litigants have to pay. Some objections say this is an added cost. It's not an added cost. If parties seriously engage with the mediation process, they will cut out a lot of additional costs that become factored should the matter go through all the processes until it lands on the trial roll. So it's a necessary cost that litigants have to go through.
And some litigants may argue it's a necessary cost, but it's a cost that they can meet. What about those, for instance, who rely on legal aid, even when the matter goes through the court?
Well, legal aid has its own internal processes as to how to meet these expenses that happen before the matter is finalized.
Okay.
Yes.
So, and the question there was, what about, because there's gonna be private mediation. It's not like the state gives you mediators. So what about poor litigants or litigants who just simply do not have money to support, money to finance or fund that private mediation? And the judge president mentions legal aid. And if someone maybe who works for legal aid, or maybe you're a lawyer listening to us, you're able to share some thoughts with us about whether legal aid has these processes where you can actually go for, get mediators, and how smooth is that process? Because that's one of the things that people are worried about. You are looking to the courts for justice, and then now you are told, okay, before you even go on trial, we have to try and resolve this matter outside of courts. And to be fair, the judge president does say that many of the matters, 85% or so of civil matters, on the day that the matters are in court, they often get resolved on that day. So you clog up the system unnecessarily, and that disadvantages the access to justice for other deserving matters that need to go on trial, which I absolutely get. But how do we balance that with this issue of private mediation? Is that not going to disadvantage someone who simply doesn't have money to fund that process? Here's what the judge president said about the mediation report that you would have to produce before your civil matter gets enrolled in court.
That report will play a key role in terms of telling us whether parties seriously engaged with the issues in dispute. And those matters whose dates we are taking away from 2026, we know that they filed Rule 41A notices, but we're saying they have an option to file an expanded Rule 41A notice, and it covers a number of areas which they have to cover to persuade us that they have engaged in a serious attempt to resolve their disputes, even where experts are involved. Yes.
What kind of cases, Judge President, normally clog up the system, these civil cases? I know with the Road Accident Fund, that's probably one of the cases that mostly clog up. Are there others, typical cases?
The RAF cases is the biggest chunk of cases that are clogging our roll. And when I say clogging our roll, I mean those are the matters on a normal day. Each of the DJP will allocate not less than 3 trials for that day to a judge who's on that roll. Now, 3 trials to be finalized within that day to a judge. Think for yourself, what kind of justice are we talking about? Because the next day, that judge will get another 3. And these are the matters that settle, right? So you ask yourself, why should people insist on applying for trial dates and heaping up all the costs until they arrive at the doors of the court and then settling?
Because it makes sense for their bottom line. They want to make money.
We are not in the business of assisting people make money.
Yeah.
We are in the business of making sure that there's effective access to justice to litigants.
Yeah.
Where do you stand on this one? 011-883-0702. That's a good point, eh? The Road Accident Fund, lawyers are coining it. They love it when the matters are just postponed and we never get to trial. Because they keep billing. They're charging you as a beneficiary of the Road Accident Fund. And that's why the judge president says we're not in the business of making lawyers make money here, because the Road Accident Fund cases are clogging the system. some of the matters could actually be resolved out of court. They could, easily. But that's not what some of the lawyers want, because then they're not going to be billing you. Let me know your thoughts on 011-883-0702. WhatsApp's on 0727021702.
Your voice.
Your station.
Your open line.
Walk the talk with Clement Manyathela.
On 702.
Mamkwena, you calling from Midrand. Good morning.
Good morning, Lekai Clement.
Regoana Lekai, what are your thoughts on this directive from the Judge President?
The directive from the Judge President is going to deprive the poor from getting justice that is provided for and having their that is provided for by the Constitution.
Yeah.
I'm a lawyer. I'm not a road accident fund lawyer. I should say it from the get-go. I'm not a road accident lawyer. In fact, I'm a lawyer that helps people who have been given their land back and that cheated by the people who are supposed to go to America as refugees. And I fight those cases at my own expense. And what I'm basically saying is that, guys, there is nothing like I'm a mediator as well. Yeah. We charge. So how are these people going to afford us, the poor? Those who don't have money for a mediation. I'm not, and I don't do NVAs, please, guys.
Yeah, is legal aid not going to be able to assist them, Mamkwena? Because that's what the Judge President seems to believe.
He's being unrealistic. The legal aid cannot afford anything right now.
Yeah.
It's not affording anything because people are having applying to legal aid. Legal aid does not have sufficient funds. So how is it going to assist the poor? And how do we balance that against your right to be heard by the appropriate forum, which is the court, or a tribunal that has been established? Really, I think the Judge President is being unkind to poor litigants.
All right, Mamkwena and Midrand, thank you so much for your thoughts. He did say, and maybe Abel, you can find me that clip in the beginning of that interview, because I did ask about that access to justice and whether this is not going to curtail that right to be heard by a court, right, from litigants. And he mentioned that the right is not limitless, right? Your right to even access the courts is not limitless. And he said, we are avoiding the inevitable. At some point, we are going to get to a point where compulsory mediation becomes the norm. In fact, globally, that's something that already happens. I'll try find that clip for you so I can play where he explains and responds to that concern of whether or not rights of people are affected to access the courts. Kustas, you are calling from Midrand. What are your thoughts?
Clement, I always ask myself that when judges are forced to make plans and just to make ends meet, where is the government? Why are they not building enough courts? Where is the public minister of works? Because it's not for the first time I hear the justice complaining about the fact that, guys, we are overworked. We don't have enough resources. The constitutional development is always never around when it comes to this matter. So I'm suggesting to you, Clement, that more courts are needed. This is a constitutional matter, by the way. I think it put the government in the absolute bad light because the Judge President is doing this so that the wheels of justice keep going. Justice delayed is justice denied. And now he's trying to make ways around this because what he can do, he's been complaining and it's not being heard. The Chief Justice has been complaining, they're not being heard. Similar to what we say with the ANC. Yeah, the ANC needs you to ban things before they start to take you seriously. Because right now they are talking and the ANC isn't listening. When I say ANC, I mean the government. It's not listening. Surely they should do help when I can.
Yeah. We're so used to thinking the ANC is the government. The GNU is the government.
The GNU.
and Kustas, the Judge President said yes. It shocked me because he said because the issue here is the judges. We need, I think, I don't remember, but he said we need extra 50 or extra 30 or something judges. The last time that there were judges increased was, I think, 2008 or something. That is crazy. That's a long time ago. So The judges that are already in the system just do not have capacity for all the matters. And government keeps on saying, and I've interviewed probably all the different 4 ministers of justice even before, and I've raised this issue with them, even before Ronald Lamola, even before Thembisi Melani, I've raised the same issue with Mamoloko Kubai. When are they making investments in making sure that the administration of justice is not compromised? Why are they not investing in hiring more judges? And they keep saying they are working on it. The judiciary will be capacitated. But this is the impact we have. People now on civil matters have to wait until 2031. Now people are going to be forced into compulsory mediation because the judge president must improvise.
Yeah, Clement, it's disappointing. Remember, they wanted to bring in that racist judge to help.
Yeah, in the Constitutional Court.
We shut that idea down. Guess what? We never gave them any alternative. So what are we really expecting them to do? Anyway, thank you, Clement, for taking my call.
Oh, thank you, Christus and Midrand. Yeah, what do we expect them to do? Gauteng, I mean, if you look at just Gauteng is, the high courts here are actually the busiest. Gauteng is the busiest and largest high court division in the country. So many of the matters are actually being heard here. In fact, probably about 50% of civil matters that are even outside of this province, often end up in Gauteng High Court. So the judge president has got to improvise. But how do we balance that with the right to access justice, especially from the poorest of the poor? Where are they going to get the money for private mediation when legal aid already just is struggling to fund a lot of cases? Share your thoughts with us. You can call or send a WhatsApp voice note. It's 9:32. Let's get the latest in Eyewitness News headlines. Good morning.
Thanks, Clement. Good morning. The Hawks have revealed that the suspects arrested in connection with the attack on patrollers at the Merimi informal settlement in Soshanguve are linked to other crimes they committed in the same week. The investigating unit says the suspects are linked to a number of house robberies and murders which took place on Friday. The 2 suspects allegedly attacked the patrollers on Saturday, killing 6 members. 4 others remain hospitalized under police guard. Government says it will consult stakeholders and allow for a public participation process over regulations of the sale of cannabis and hemp foodstuffs. Last night, the presidency had now announced the withdrawal of a law banning the sale of cannabis and hemp products in the country after the Health Department's blanket ban on all affiliated products earlier this month. This led to an outcry from the cannabis industry and the public alike, who called it a threat to the future of the sector in the country. The Duke of Sussex has resigned from his charity organisation Sintebale after a row between the trustees and the chair of its board. Prince Harry co-founded the charity in 2006 in honour of his late mother, Diana, Princess of Wales, to help people in Southern Africa living with HIV and AIDS. Those are the headlines. This Eyewitness News and more at 10 o'clock or as it happens.
EWN Traffic.
Well, at this stage, if you are heading towards four-ways coming from Randburg, slow-moving traffic, N1 northbound. This is between Malibongo Drive and Winnie Mandela Drive. Also, in the Sandton area, traffic sluggish, M1 southbound. This is between Marlborough Drive and Ethel Oaklands. Otherwise, things have settled down pretty nicely throughout 702 land. Just look out for those faulty traffic lights, though. This is in four-ways, Witkoppen and Cedar, in Kyalami at the R55 and Main. Traffic lights also not working in Groenkloof, Pretoria at Christina de Wit and Euphius. I'll have your next Eyewitness News traffic update just after 10.
There's more EWN on air, online, and on the EWN app.
Africa Milani.
Weekday mornings,
4 to 6.
Ooh, so much to cover. Let's start with the alert issued by Eskom, I think on Monday, saying that we could be in stage 2 of load shedding with very little notice on Monday evening. I don't think that was realized. What was the challenge there?
The limit is that we fired the maximum of our diesel turbines that we have available in the country, about 2,700 megawatts of diesel turbines. Eskom had mentioned that the reason why we went to our limit is they had unforeseen breakdowns at 6 of their power stations.
Matthew Cruz, energy expert at Empower.
Africa Milani.
4 to 6 on 702.
When you need a bucky for business, you want tough and reliable and a proper warranty. Kia's K2 Bucky comes with an unlimited kilometer 5-year warranty. So you get to drive 900 million, 82, 407 million and 20. Let's just say you can drive for a gazillion kilometers. With up to 40 grand cash back, your business can go further with a Kia Bucky.
Kia, movement that inspires.
Diabetes has become the leading cause of deaths in South Africa. Every hour, at least 3 people die of diabetes in this country. This means that in a year, we lose more than 30,000 people to this dreaded disease. This is a silent pandemic which requires active participation by all of us. You may be asking, what can I do as an individual? Limit intake of foods and drinks high in sugar and be physically active. Eat right for a better life. Foods high in sugar, fat and salt can lead to obesity, diabetes, high blood pressure, heart disease and certain cancers. This message is brought to you by the National Department of Health.
At Checkers, swipe and save extra on month-end deals like Kellogg's Cornflakes cereal 1 kg for $69.99, Nestle Premium or Dairy Made Gelato Roma ice cream, any 2 for 160 Rand, and Baby Soft 2-ply white or Supreme Quilts toilet rolls, 18 per pack, any 2 for 249 Rand. Valid until Sunday at Checkers, Checkers Hyper, or shop on 6060.
For 60 years, Altron has led the way using technology to tackle South Africa's biggest challenges.
Catch 702 in conversation with Werner Kaap on 702 Breakfast with Bongani Bingwa next week,
as we discuss Altron's legacy intertwined with Joburg's history and the company's vision for the city.
Find out how Altron is honoring the business leaders of the past 60 years who built Johannesburg while championing and partnering with the current leaders
to rebuild Jozi over the next 60 years.
That's 702 Breakfast with Bongani Bingwa in conversation with Altron.
Wednesday, 2 April, only on 702.
Your voice.
Your station.
Your open line.
Walk the talk with Clement Manyathela
on 702.
23 minutes before 10 o'clock. Let's continue with your calls and WhatsApps on the 702 open line. We've been reflecting on Bafana, but also on this directive that the Gauteng Judge President sent out about the need for compulsory mediation before civil matters can be enrolled in court for trial. The Judge President says this is going to help deal with civil trial caseloads because there's just pressure on the system. So many civil matters, most of them the Road Accident Fund matters that are clogging the system. When you look at the earliest court dates available for civil matters, that's in 2031. So the Judge President says this could be a way to sort of resolve this backlog. So let's start with your voice notes on Bafana, and then move on to your calls on this particular matter around compulsory mediation.
Morning, Clement and Radio 702 family. Clement, we're happy for Bafana. Well, the only 2 people that should not be in that squad, unfortunately, to spoil the party. CBC and Gaza, they're going to cost us at the AFCON. Okay, but with the officials, I think there are people that are hired at SAFA. Clement, when you hire someone to get you facts in your show, you want them to get you facts. You can't be looking for facts when someone is supposed to be doing that job. There should be someone who's doing that job at SAFA, and that person needs to be fired. Pizzo had a problem in 2012 when dancing. Now it's going to happen to these boys.
Good morning, Clement. Congratulations to our national team, Bafana. And I think we must attribute their success to Hugo Bruce and Sundowns skillful players. I'm not saying this because I'm a Sundowns fan, but as long as Sundowns players are dominating, Bafana will go far because Sundowns players are used to winning trophies. Thank you very much. Peter Maila Machava from Letswana.
Tim, you are calling us from Alberton. Good morning.
Good morning, Clement.
Sure.
Firstly, I would love to say congratulations to Bafana and the coach. And above all, I think the honors should go to the PSL. It simply shows, look at South Africa national team. We have most of those players, they are playing in South Africa. They are not playing in Europe. that's a fantastic achievement.
Yeah.
Point number 2, we were very lucky to have countries like Zimbabwe in our group and Lesotho. But why am I saying this? Because they don't have stadiums that are ready. And I'm told the news are saying Zimbabweans have already fixed their stadium. So most likely the next match when Zimbabwe will be playing at home is going to be in Harare, and it's going to be a difficult match. But all in all, I would also love to say congratulations to Zimbabwe, the way they play, the spirit. When they came to South Africa, they came via the bus. They didn't have uniforms. They didn't have a coach. To be honest, kudos to Zimbabwe for showing the world that even without money, you can achieve a lot.
All right, Tim in Alberton, thank you so much. In fact, for all of your congratulations to Bafana after beating Benin 2-0 last night.
Your voice.
Your station.
Your open line.
Walk the talk with Clement Manyathela
on 702.
Is it time for civil cases to go through compulsory mediation first before being enrolled in court for trial? Philip, you're calling us from Johannesburg. What are your thoughts? Good morning. Hi, Philip.
Hi there. Thanks for taking my call, Clement.
Sure.
The road accident fund is a situation that's been going on for years and years and years.
Yeah.
Now, the issue here is that more than 90% of these cases don't have to go to court. What you need to do, and we've been saying this for years, is to establish a panel of experts, of medical experts, legal experts, and actuaries. Most of these cases can be settled by that panel. They are not in dispute. And we've been saying this for years. It'll save hundreds of millions of rands in terms of settlement fees. Now, remember that all of the legal fees come out of the settlement given to the victim of the accident. And often this can be even up to 50 or 60%. And if you did this, you probably only need 9 or 2 or 3 or 5% of the cases to go to court, the ones that can't be resolved at the meeting. And this is just a churning business to create income for both some of the doctors and the lawyers, because each case that goes, a simple case of whiplash, would have to have at least 2 law firms, 2 doctors, and 4 medical legal reports, or maybe more medical legal reports. And this is just a waste of money. And as I said, this comes out of the client settlement, which is crazy. So I think this is what needs to be done rather than mediation to resolve the road accident fund cases.
Why is it not happening, Philip? Because this has been a conversation, as you say, for a while now. These recommendations have been put forward, but also often lawyers come and they resist those changes because they are the ones that also eventually get to benefit. And unfortunately, the beneficiaries of the road accident fund end up having their money hugely reduced because what they get is significantly less because of these processes that just unfold in the courts.
Yeah, absolutely. And these are what we call the tow truck attorneys. Their business is based on it. They advertise on your radio. And it should be stopped because it does not have to exist. More than 90% of the cases can simply be resolved and say, these are the injuries. This is what the cost is going to be to provide future protection or future care for the victim of the accident. And that's it. It can be done. Most of them can be resolved in probably half an hour. You get a panel of experts, pay them for the day. They sit there, they can go through 100 cases a day. But unfortunately, the industry has been generated from this and stopped.
True. Philip, thank you so much for your thoughts, man. In Johannesburg, Unati, you are in Centurion. What do you think?
No, you know what, Philip, what he just said, I think he just covered many things that I wanted to talk about, because I think what we're not paying attention to is the money. Because if you pay attention to the money, who is benefiting from these delays? And once you understand that, and what power do they have in the process? And I think the judge, with whatever that proposal is made, especially with what Philip has indicated, I think this is what we're battling with as a country, is how the state resources needs to be utilized. Because the people who are real beneficiaries of this process are taken for a ride by the people who are benefiting from it. But also, Clement, what is also key, we keep referring back to the state all the time. The people are saying, no, you can't do this, no, you can't do that, because people who are beneficiaries in this process are the ones that are actually pushing the narrative, because the majority of those that are represented don't even know what it is that they need to get. But what is also important is that we need to pay attention to the fact that the state is not able to generate money without us paying taxes. Because eventually this money is the money that is coming from us as citizens of the state. Because when you go to court, you need judges. Those judges are paid for by us. And for us to have a functioning country, we need to start paying attention to how this money is being utilized. And because these are our taxes. Thanks, Clement.
Thank you, Nati in Centurion. Let's go to Nati in Omonde. Good morning, Nati. Ntati? Is it Ntati? Yes, Ntabi.
It's Ntabi.
Sure.
It's Ntabi. Good morning.
Morning, Tabi. Go ahead.
Okay, so I just wanted to share my perspective, right, in terms of the civil matters. Like, for example, a family going through domestic violence, and there's children involved, and there's the Children's Act. One, what I've learned through the process is that those two acts, as much as they protect the children and the mother, but they don't speak to each other when you go to court. And then you have to choose a battle as to, are you going through the Children's Act or Domestic Violence Act? And that's another thing, because if a child has been, hurt, assaulted, and that you're claiming, maintenance and all of those things, why are they not speaking to each other? And you get into the courtroom, and the magistrates are so harsh to you. They just want you, like, for example, to just decide. Mind you, there's also issues of domestic violence affect people that are can't even afford to get a lawyer. One, the legal aid system, you always tend back. You go to other avenues, they tell you that you have to go. And by the time that details come into place, you're already in court. And there's delayed tactics, and then the magistrate will just postpone. Like, there's an example where there's an incident where we got postponed because there's no water. So I do believe that mediation, should be the first and primary thing, with experts like advocates and stuff that would be able to look at both the, for example, domestic violence, and then with the Children's Act, and say, okay, based on these two acts, how do they correlate, and how do we then make it for the best interest of the child or the people that are concerned? So, for example, there's a matter I've been involved in since 2023. It's 2025. It's still not settled. There's children involved. There's been delayed tactics. And when you try and get attorneys, pro bono, or others, when they see you at court, they approach you because the matter is very sensitive. But then when they know you can't pay, then that's it. But you get to the court and they're just like, why are we still here 2 years later? And you're like, but why are we not here 2 years later? Because I'm present, I'm here.
Yeah.
So I do feel that there needs to be a way where there's experts and placed in court in particular, because in the civil side also, remember, you can go there without having an attorney. You just need to get assisted and get your matter across and be heard. So we're not legal people also as parents or people going through civil matters. You just need assistance, but it's not there. So I do believe,
The tough thing, Don Tabi, is that you have to fund the private mediation. You've indicated that you've been turned back by legal aid. In this case, what happens? What happens when you don't have money to fund that private mediation? And that's where it gets tricky for litigants that may not have the money.
Yes, for me, that's why I'm saying it's not an issue. Everything you see, it's monetized right now, even the way it is. So there needs to be what government, if they're saying that the judges and the magistrate are over indebted, the only way is that then take funds, put it in the resources of people that are able to assist you. So if the mediators, like the gentleman, I think it's Philippe that spoke before, he said, let's look at the money, because after the settlement, you still have to pay the mediator. But is there a way that we can place mediators in courts or people that are in court to assist in a level that by the time it reaches the magistrate desk or office, it's just a matter of going through quickly that and see, okay, this is what's agreed upon, then can give judgment. So it should be a balanced way. And the fact that as much as we're talking about rights and responsibilities, we are paying taxes. So why are our taxes only going towards certain billables and not the primary stuff? Because when the kids and the women and the civil matters are taken care of, then the rest of the criminal justice and all the technical stuff would be easier to go through.
Absolutely. Tabi, I got you. Thank you so much for your thoughts in Omo and the TDK, Seja, Mpanga, and Willie. I'll start with your calls after this break. It's 11 minutes before 10.
You could be famous for DIY like that time you turned a barrel into a braai. Or you could be really famous for DIY with a little help from Chamberlain. Join us from 20 March to 6 April for our Really Famous for Hardware promotion and tap into 120 years of DIY know-how. Get 10% off Dulux paint mixing, explore the widest range of tools, building supplies and even siteware. And visit our newly renovated Waterkloof Glen branch. It's your one-stop DIY shop, and with click and collect, we mean that literally. Chamberlain, really famous for hardware since 1903.
Hey, remember when our office turned into an indoor swimming pool from the flood incident we had? Oh yeah, feels like it was just yesterday. Luckily, we are with My Way Business Insurance and they kept us afloat despite the soaked carpets. Talk about an insurer that's got your back no matter the situation. Agreed. With My Way, we can weather any storm with the ultimate confidence.
Cover your building and office contents hassle-free with My Way Business Insurance. Visit myway.co.za for a quote and do business your way. My Way is a licensed non-life insurer and FSP. T's and C's apply.
My family's struggling with snotty noses and phlegmy coughs.
Oh no! Have you tried ACC?
ACC 600 is a convenient one-a-day effervescent tablet from 14 years of age. Or now also in a no-water-needed, fruity-flavored sherbet-like granules that dissolve in your mouth. Ideal for the on-the-go adult. Ask for ACC 600 effervescent or oral powder at your nearest pharmacy to get rid of the snotties and flemmings. And trust, if it doesn't say ACC, it's not ACC.
Let's face it, in this country, small business owners wear many hats, and they wear them brilliantly. That's why MTN and 702 wanted to bow hats to all the incredible SMEs of Gauteng for being such a valuable part of our communities and a vibrant force in SA's economy. In the 702 Small Business Awards, brought to you by MTN, because MTN is here to help grow their businesses and move them further. Go to primemediaplus.com now, enter your SME or nominate a small business doing big things in the 702 Small Business Awards, brought to you by MTN. Today, we make moves. T's and C's and more on primemediaplus.com.
Your voice. Your station.
Your open line.
Walk the talk with Clement Manyathela
on 702.
8 minutes before 10 o'clock. TDK, let's start with you in Johannesburg. Good morning.
Morning, sir. I think your first two callers, Mr. Clement, nipped it in the bud. Money is the root cause of all this, the problem. You know what? There is mediation. Let me give you a typical example with your labor court and your CCMA. Your CCMA it is the most fitting mediation, but that's where the problem starts, because now poor employees will be taking their cases there, and then instead of receiving correct mediation, therefore it depends on who's got the big purse, and then these people are not held accountable. These commissioners are not held accountable for the awards or decisions that they make. So while these people can be held accountable, I can tell you the judge would have nipped it in the bud. Because money is the root cause of the problem. And also they need to check their judiciary system, the people that they employ, as to whether they do their work appropriately. Because now you tend to wonder, if you've got cases that sit there for 10 years or 5 years, and then you've got cases that come so recently and they can be entertained, you look at that discrepancy and then you ask yourself, how did that happen? How did you manage to entertain a case that comes now while you are sitting with a case for 5 years?
Yeah, true. TDK in Johannesburg, thank you. Edwin, you are in Rosebank. Good morning.
Hi, Clement. How are you?
Sure. Go ahead.
I'm fine, thanks. Look, man, one thing that I think perhaps the JP should have thought is most of the objection on his proposal, mediation, is because of the issue of costs, especially to those litigants who do not have money. And the only way to go is to court. So now, if he says that the RAF is the ones or is the cases that clog the system, I think maybe the proposal should be, why don't he take those RAF matters and make them compulsory for mediation? Because at the end of the day, the litigants in the RAF matters do not really pay out of their pockets. Upon settlement, I think that's when each and every service provider, including lawyers, doctors, and whoever, is going to take their money from. then in that case, maybe even the mediators will be able to take their money from the matter once the matter is settled. Because he's right. 90% of the cases of RAF cases get settled at the door of the court, and they have blocked the issue of dates. Imagine from now, 2031, I mean, you will even die before your matter comes to court. So I think he's got a point. Yeah, he's got a point, but he must just put it on RAF matters, because I won't be able to afford a mediator as just a normal citizen of the country with no deep pockets at the end of the day.
Yeah, Edwin in Rosebank, thank you for your thoughts. He says maybe then make it compulsory for road accident fund cases and not for all civil matters. Seja in Pretoria, what do you think? Hi.
Hi, Clement. How are you?
Shoshoman, go ahead.
I think they need to expand. It's a good idea. I think they need to expand it to cover the medical negligence cases as well, the mediation. I am saying this. I am saying this in light that we, as the people who were wrong, I'm talking to you seated on a wheelchair currently, and the case is there for the past 2 years. It doesn't move. And I am suffering in the process because I need to go to the hospital to see the specialist. I need to go to the physiotherapist. I'm literally using my own money.
Yeah.
And for how long must I wait?
True, Seja. Absolutely get that. Thank you so much for your call. That's a legitimate issue you're raising there. That's costing you a lot of money as well, as you consult with all these specialists. Mapanga, you're in Melrose. Good morning.
Yes, Clement, it's Mapanga.
Sure.
So in 2020 March, there was a similar uniform rule of the court. I think it was 41A, capital letter A. My experience in the matters that I've dealt with since then is that even though you can explore mediation, most of the time, if the parties are apart, and this happens in 90% of the cases, the parties won't settle, they will go to court. So what now practitioners are doing is, because they know being in court is going to take you long, matters are now just resolved by arbitration, where you appoint together with your rival attorney, you appoint maybe a former judge or a senior advocate to act as an arbitrator in the matter. In one I was involved recently, moved quite fast because of the involvement of the arbitrator. Mediation can work, and I think in magistrates courts, especially in Randburg, I've had instances where X beats Y, and then there's a dispute over that. Usually the prosecutors will be amenable if the parties will want to settle, to say, look, perhaps let's just mediate this dispute. So there are instances where mediation works, where it's you and your partner, you had an argument, and things got out of hand, but there's no history of violence. So that you as an attorney can reach out to the prosecutor to say, look, my client is willing to mediate the dispute maybe before a family counselor, and we can report back maybe in about 2 months. So it can work, especially in the marriage court. My experience, at least, is that there's more willingness. They call it, forget this word, restorative justice. Yes, there is. NPA sometimes will give you a chance to say, look, let's not go to trial. Perhaps you guys can resolve it. So the problem is based on the facts of each case.
Yeah,
look, it can work. Let's give it a chance. But my experience is that when parties are apart, and that happens 90% of the time, they usually say, no, let's just go to
They
court.
just want justice. They just want a court to rule on that particular matter. Yeah, but I hear you, Mapanga. Let's give it a shot. Maybe it'll work. But I think it's important that we also raise some of these limitations. I'm sure the judge president also considers some of the objections that are made. Thank you for your thoughts. It's 2 minutes before 10.
Hollywood Bets. We're making life even more exciting by bringing you all the furious fun and fantastic fortunes of March Mania from Pragmatic Live Casino. Enter the dazzling worlds of roulette, blackjack, baccarat, and more, and stand a chance to win a share of 200,000 Rand. Simply bet 50 Rand or more on any Pragmatic Live Casino game between 3 and 30 March, and you could be in line for some big wins. T's and C's apply. Hollywood Sportsbook is a licensed betting operator. Hollywood Bets supports responsible gambling. No persons under the age of 18 years are permitted to gamble. Winners know when to stop. South African Responsible Gambling Foundation toll-free counselling line 0800 006 008 or WhatsApp help to 076 675 0710.
Honey, what are you doing?
I'm stretching for tonight.
I thought you're not dancing at bachelorette parties anymore.
Baby, we need the money to put Johnny through matric mos.
And what's the police uniform for?
The clients feel safer when I wear it.
No, man, just sell your bakkie to We Buy Cars. They give the best prices and they pay you within minutes.
Okay, but can I just go and dance one more time, please? You know how much I love it.
No, the buyer's already on his way here.
Wow, okay.
Strapped for cash? Just sell your vehicle to We Buy Cars. The easiest way to sell your car by far.
In a world where talent is everywhere but opportunity is not, the Dream Fields project is leveling the playing field. Through football, netball and athletics, they are giving 80,000 children across South Africa the chance to run, jump, score and dream. This afternoon on 702 Drive, we'll find out more about the work the Dream Fields project is doing in a conversation made possible by the Dis-Chem Foundation. Remember, every time you swipe your Dis-Chem or Dis-Chem Baby City benefit card, you're contributing to meaningful initiatives like this. Don't miss the conversation tomorrow on 702 Drive. The Dis-Chem Foundation, caring for the community. Every swipe counts.
This is EWN.
Good morning, I'm Mikey Malapo. The Hawks have revealed that the suspects arrested in connection with the attack on patrollers at the Merimi informal settlement in Soshanguve are linked to other crimes they committed in the same week. The Hawks have revealed that the suspects arrested in connection, the investigating unit says the suspects are linked to a number of house robberies and murders which took place on Friday. The two suspects allegedly attacked the patrollers on Saturday, killing 6 members. 4 others remain hospitalized under police guard. Hawk spokesperson Christopher Singo says the suspects will appear in court today.
According to the information, the suspects are allegedly linked to murders and house robberies that occurred on 21 February 2025. Both the suspects are expected to appear before the Pretoria North Magistrate Court on 26 March 2025 on charges of murder, attempted murder, possession of unlicensed firearms and ammunition.
Meanwhile, a memorial service for the victims is set to take place this afternoon. Johannesburg Mayor Dada Morero has acknowledged public opposition to the proposed renaming of Santon Drive, but confirmed the proposal remains in the public consultation phase. In 2018, the city approved a motion to rename the road to Leila Khaled Drive in honor of the Palestinian freedom fighter. The city council remains divided on the matter, with some opposing the change, citing concerns over sensitive diplomatic ties with the US, while others continue to support it. If the name change goes ahead, the United States consulate in Santon would be located on a street named after a person the current U.S. government refers to as a terrorist. Speaking at a media briefing this morning, Morero emphasized the city has yet to reach a final decision on the renaming.
On the renaming of Santon Drive, Pule, the city of Johannesburg reaffirms its commitment to diplomatic sensitivity in the Santon Drive renaming process. It is also important to note that this resolution was arrived at in 2018 at the point where the Democratic Alliance was in government.
Government says it will consult stakeholders and allow for a public participation process over regulations of the sale of cannabis and hemp foodstuffs. Last night, the presidency announced the withdrawal of a law banning the sale of cannabis and hemp products in the country after the health department's blanket ban on all affiliated products earlier this month. This led to an outcry from the cannabis industry and the public alike, who called it a threat to the future of the sector in the country. The presidency says it has noted the health minister's concerns over the unregulated nature of the products. Presidential spokesperson Vincent Magwenya.
The President has affirmed his support for more stakeholder consultation and public participation on the formulation of new regulations that will limit health risk and the negative impact of foodstuffs containing cannabis and hemp, particularly on minors.
Home Affairs Minister Leon Schreiber has presented digitalization as the answer to corruption at the country's borders. Schreiber, together with the Special Investigating Unit, launched the Border Management and Immigration Anti-Corruption Forum yesterday. The forum is to centralize crime prevention efforts with all law enforcement bodies, civil society groups and traditional leaders being members. Khomotso Modise has more.
Between July last year and February, 27 Home Affairs officials were dismissed for offences including fraud, corruption and sexual misconduct. Minister Leon Schreiber says some have also been prosecuted.
Thanks to the work of our partners in law enforcement, 8 of these officials have already been convicted and sentenced to prison terms ranging from 4 to 18 years, while criminal prosecution of another 19 officials away.
Home Affairs is forging ahead with the phasing out of the green ID book and the automation at all ports of entry.
Because you simply cannot bribe a computer. When the computer says no, it doesn't ask for something to change the answer.
Schreiber says these reforms will deliver a systems revolution in the border management and immigration environment. Khomotso Modise, Eyewitness News, Pretoria.
And the Duke of Sussex has resigned from his charity organisation Sintabale after a row between the trustees and the chair of its board. Prince Harry co-founded the charity in 2006 in honour of his mother, Diana, Princess of Wales, to help people in southern Africa living with HIV and AIDS. He stepped down with his co-founder, Prince Seiso of Lesotho, and the board of trustees because their relationship with chairwoman, Dr. Sophie Chandauka, broke down beyond repair after she was asked to resign. Dr. Chandauka said she reported the trustees to the UK Charity Commission and had blown the whistle about abuse of power and harassment. Gold's trading at $3,031.14 an ounce. The rand's at 18.21 to the dollar, at 23.51 to the pound, at 19.65 to the euro. Brent crude oil at $73.34 a barrel.
Heading towards four-ways, that's coming from the Randburg area. There's slow-moving traffic N1 north between Malibongwe Drive and Winnie Mandela Drive, while in Edenville, driving towards Bedfordview, traffic is a bit sluggish. R24 westbound between Edenville Road and the Giluli's interchange, and look out for those faulty traffic lights still in Edenville at Modderfontein Road and Van Riebeck.
In your weather, partly cloudy skies in store for Gauteng today with scattered showers and thunder showers expected. Temperatures are set to peak at highs of 28 degrees. The top story in Eyewitness News this hour. The Hawks have revealed that the suspects arrested in connection with the attack on patrollers at the Merimi informal settlement in Soshanguve are linked to other crimes they committed in the same week.
EWN, in touch, in tune, and independent. For the latest, visit ewn.co.za or download the EWN app.
You're with Clement Manyathela
on 702.
Let's walk the talk. Streaming on the Prime Media Plus app.
DSTV channel 856,
92.7 and 106 FM.
7 minutes after 10 o'clock, Dumelang, welcome to the second hour of the Clement Manyathela Show. Thank you for staying with us here on 702. Thank you for your thoughts, your contribution, your inputs on the 702 open line. Remember, at 10:30, we are going to answer this critical question of who is Leo Brent Bozell III? That's the man that US President Donald Trump wants as ambassador to South Africa. I will speak to a reporter in Washington, D.C., who will tell us who this man is. He says we must buckle up. What do we need to know about him? And is this the man who can, yes, advance U.S. interests, but also help us rebuild the relations with the U.S. in the face of so much hostility? Or is he just about to make things worse? That's the question. We'll find out who he is at 10:30.
You're with Clement Manyathela.
702.
But right now, we are trying to make sense of the President's instruction to the Minister of Health, Dr. Aaron Motsoaledi, to withdraw the regulations that the Minister gazetted a few weeks ago. Last night, it was clear that the President wasn't happy with the Minister's decision to gazette a notice banning the import, the manufacture, and the sale of any foods containing cannabis and cannabis products without consulting stakeholders first. So the president has basically told the minister, go and withdraw these regulations you gazetted and go consult. And I know the DA and some in the cannabis industry will probably say, yeah, but we told you, right? We had this conversation last week on the show where we invited a number of stakeholders. We had the DA, we had someone from the cannabis industry, we had the ministry, the Department of Health. We were joined there by one of the DDGs. And the question we were really asking on our Thursday dialogue last week was whether the ban on cannabis and hemp in food products is justified. And that's not to say that the health department doesn't have a responsibility to protect consumers, right? There's a way to do these things without killing businesses with blanket regulations like that, especially when you have a president who was making a lot of noise about exploring the potential of the cannabis industry in his State of the Nation address. Not once, not twice, but several times, the president has said, we need to explore this industry. Government has a whole master plan which details how cannabis as an industry could be worth up to 28 billion rand. It could create around 130,000 jobs. And then you've got these kind of blanket regulations that are not really doing much in assisting the industry. So you're killing the very industry that the president says he wants to build. So now the decision was made last night. The presidency released a statement where the president said he has affirmed his support for more stakeholder consultation and public participation on the formulation of new regulations that will limit the health risk, but also the negative impact of foodstuffs containing cannabis and hemp, particularly on minors. That statement continues to say that in a briefing, the president, the Minister of Health, Aaron Motsoaleni, expressed concern about unregulated imported foodstuffs that are flooding the South African market containing hemp and cannabis. So in light of further stakeholder consultations, the Minister of Health will withdraw the regulations under the Foodstuffs, Cosmetics and Disinfectants Act to prohibit the sale, importation, manufacturing of foodstuffs containing hemp and cannabis. The Department of Health will continue to consult broadly before publishing the revised regulation. That's what the statement that was released just before 8 p.m. last night says. We've invited a number of people to weigh in on this. You're welcome to join this conversation as well. You can call on 011-883-0702 or send a WhatsApp on 072-702-1702. Let's start with Michelle Clark, who is the DA Shadow Minister of Health, joining us on the line. Michelle, thank you for making time. Good morning.
Good morning, and thank you for having me on your show, and good morning to your listeners.
We also have Zakhele Mthembu, who is a legal researcher with the Free Market Foundation. Thank you so much for your time as well, Zakhele. Good morning.
Good morning, Clement. Thank you for having me, and good morning to your listeners.
Yeah, I'll start with you, Michelle. I think you were clear as the Democratic Alliance from the day that these regulations were gazetted that this is a blanket approach. There's a different way that this could have been done. I'm sure you welcomed this approach taken by the president last night.
Yes, we really welcome the approach by the president because from the get-go, myself as the spokesperson on Health for the Democratic Alliance has been very vocal about this regulation being published without any consultation, not even bringing it to the Health Committee for that matter, and the impact it could have on businesses. I mean, in South Africa, we've already got 1,400 regulated businesses and 400 SMEs that would have lost, their employees and their companies would have been at a major risk in terms of this regulation. And these are businesses that have been regulated. So we were extremely concerned. And of course, hemp in itself is actually a very healthy substance. It's not addictive at all or hallucinative. And it actually has 9 amino acids in it that is extremely healthy. So 100% we do agree that, makeshift businesses that just open that aren't regulated, and that certainly needs to be taken care of. But there must be a wider consultation in terms of this regulation with business stakeholders as well as the general public, in order to make an informative decision how regulations should take place. The minister should not just impose regulations without any consultation, and that we are very against. And in terms of the Constitution, this is what we should be doing.
Yeah. Zakhele, I was just reading your opinion piece this morning on page 8 of the Citizen newspaper, where you, again, were saying the cannabis law is flawed. You were basically calling for the withdrawal of these regulations. I don't know when you wrote this piece, but it looks like the president was somewhere within those walls.
That is true. I was pleasantly surprised actually last night when I saw the statement being released. Right, you would always like to think as a writer that you influence some decision-making entity, but since it wasn't published yet, I doubt he had seen it. But yeah, I wrote it quite a few days back, right? But as the lady from the DA has just said, that like we welcome it, and as in my piece, I was pretty much making the same points you were making, right, about how just it seemed contradictory to be coming from the executive, especially at this time, right, as you said, right after the State of the Nation address where the president was talking about the benefits of, this industry, and then the health minister comes and undercuts it. But, the most important thing that we should recognize, right, in South Africa is how we should normalize the cannabis as an industry that is viable in the same way that we have normalized alcohol and tobacco, right? In as much as we recognize the health risks and the negative health consequences of those industries, we don't see the vilification that we currently are seeing with cannabis in those industries. Maybe it is because that they've been established for such a long time, right? So I hope that with the withdrawal of these regulations, there's going to be a proper interrogation in how this industry can, for lack of a better term, be normalized, because the state needs the revenue it will get from this, outside of the actual rights that are being violated by not allowing people to, consume whatever it is they want to consume without harming others, right? But the actual revenue that the state can extract from this at this very moment, as we are dealing with budget shortfalls, it really just makes no sense that the executive is even considering a regulation that would criminalize an entire aspect of industry. So I was quite pleased.
Yeah, that absolutely. And then Charles Hennig is a cannabis activist and who's joining us also on the line. Charles, thank you for also joining this chat. Good morning.
Good morning. Hello there from Cape Town.
Yeah. What's your reaction from someone who is in the industry yourself when you see this position that the president has taken now, that there must be broader consultations?
Yeah, it's about high time this happens, because cannabis is a complicated subject and it's a complicated industry. The plant has many, many uses. And by just doing a blanket ban of food that contain cannabis, for example, you're ruining livelihoods and making things more complicated. This should be much more carefully thought through.
So, Michelle, what's the next process now? This statement from the president says there are going to be broader consultations. And I mean, so obviously this clearly indicates that the minister didn't consult before these regulations were gazetted. But also if he did consult, that wasn't broad because so many stakeholders felt left out. So what's the next process of consultation? Does this happen through the parliamentary process? What's the next process, especially so that the people who've got some inputs, who want to share their thoughts, can prepare to do so?
What they have to do, what the minister has to do to start off with, is to bring the discussion to the health committee, because that didn't even happen, so that we are all on board as to what's happening. And then he has to gazette public participation in terms of this matter, so there's a broader consultation. And also has, stakeholders want to come and present to the committee. the health committee, there must be a forum for stakeholders to come and present to the committee so that when we gazette regulations, they are gazetted through an instrument where we are well informed. I mean, we cannot at this stage in this country have any livelihood in terms of jobs creation and the economy affected by haphazard regulations that have not been well investigated before we continue with the regulations that we have to put forward. It must be for the well-being of this country and the well-being of the citizens in this country.
Zakhele, what are your suggestions of what shape these regulations must take? Because I think all of us care about, especially the minors, and that's what the president referred to even yesterday, the negative impact of these foodstuffs that are containing cannabis and hemp, particularly on minors. There are shops that just spring up from nowhere and they are selling these things. You don't know what's in the mixture and they're selling it to young people. So there is a need for regulation. There is a need for government to think seriously about it, how it protects even consumers. How do you think this can be done without affecting businesses and, of course, the potential of this industry?
Yeah, I think we can use the model of what I like to call vices in society that were already existent, right? With alcohol and tobacco, like the regulatory model that is already existent there, we can just transfer it to the cannabis industry. And I think that as a starting point, we can just begin there, right? But of course, even the regulatory environment in tobacco and alcohol needs improvement. You mentioned something like minors. That is an extremely important point, right? And it is a point that even industries that are highly regulated, like the alcohol industry, still struggle with. We still have a problem of underage drinking in the country. We still have minors having access to tobacco and alcohol, even though, legally they aren't supposed to. But of course, having a statutory instrument there to punish those who will be doing those things is necessary. So I think that we should start at looking at the existing legal framework and regime that we have around other vices and then working from there, of course, without jeopardizing, the potential of the industry. And especially since it is a nascent industry, right, we should be as cautious as we possibly can because we would want to maximize any amount of returns that we can get from it. But I think using the existing legal framework around alcohol and tobacco should be a good start.
It's 21 minutes after 10 o'clock. After the break, we're going to continue this conversation with Michelle, Zakhele and Charles. I'm interested in your thoughts as well. What do you make of the president's instruction to the health minister that withdraw these regulations, go and consult, and then we take it from there? Because the minister gazetted the regulations about a month or so ago, where he indicated he was quite concerned about the impact on minors, concerned about consumers as well, and that notice, that gazette notice was banning the import, the manufacturing and sale of any foods containing cannabis and cannabis products. And he did so clearly either without consulting stakeholders first or without consulting more broadly. Are you concerned as well as a consumer? Some people were calling last week when we had this conversation that there are people who have gone into shops, they were buying stuff, and that stuff was actually infused with cannabis and they didn't know. But that's not a reason then you go and just go on a blanket ban. Imagine if how many bars actually sell alcohol to underage children. It's not all of them, but there are some of them who do, right? Would the solution then be ban everything, to have a blanket approach? No. There are regulations that you introduce. You consult with stakeholders and work with them and find a way to work around that. Because yes, you want to protect consumers. Yes, you want to hold the businesses accountable, but you also don't want to destroy the businesses. 23 minutes after 10.
Excuse me, can I speak to someone in charge?
Of course, sir, at your service.
My wife came here to buy masking tape yesterday, but came home with rubber ducks, picture frames, hula hoops, and jelly beans.
Yes, sir, that does tend to happen.
Well, this keeps happening. Oh, is that glitter glue for $19.99?
Indeed, sir.
And chattering teeth, also $19.99.
A crazy store.
A solar garden light for $49.99. A horoscope keychain for $19.99. Barbie toys for $19.99.
Hey, you never know what you might find.
A sponge for the bath for $29.99.
My name is Andrew Flanagan. I'm the owner of the Pokey Co. We have 6 restaurants operating in Cape Town, serving quick and convenient, healthy food. With Xero, I know the data never lies. Take Xero's dashboard, for example. Over the past 6 years, it's given me a real-time view of the business and has helped me get the perfect balance between growth and sustainability. Make your life easy. Join me and other self-made businesses on Xero. Search Xero with an X.
Do not be fooled. Smoking kills. Across the globe, more than 8 million people die of tobacco-related diseases every year. During the broadcast of this radio advert, which is only 60 seconds, 16 people would have died from tobacco. Quit smoking and vaping. If you cannot resist this lethal habit, please protect non-smokers and children. Do not smoke or vape in public places or near children. Inhaling any tobacco product, whether through smoking or vaping, can cause cancer, birth defects, heart, lung, and oral diseases. All tobacco and related products are harmful to your health. This message is brought to you by the National Department of Health.
Let's face it, in this country, small business owners wear many hats, and they wear them brilliantly. That's why MTN and 702 wanted to bow hats to all the incredible SMEs of Gauteng for being such a valuable part of our communities and a vibrant force in SA's economy. At the 702 Small Business Awards, brought to you by MTN, because MTN is here to help grow their businesses and move them further. Go to primemediaplus.com now, enter your SME, or nominate a small business doing big things in the 702 Small Business Awards, brought to you by MTN. Today, we make moves. T's and C's and more on primemediaplus.com.
702. The Clement Manyathela Show.
Let's walk the talk.
25 minutes after 10 o'clock, we're wrapping up our chat with Michelle Clark from the DA, Zakele Mthembu, who is a legal researcher, and Charles Hennig, who is a cannabis activist. We are reflecting on the decision by the president last night to tell the health minister to withdraw those regulations that he gazetted a few weeks ago. The president clearly unhappy with that decision around that gazette that bans the import, the manufacture, and the sale of any foods containing cannabis and cannabis products, because that really happened clearly without enough consultation. Charles Hennig is a cannabis activist who has been chatting to us in this half hour. And Charles, from you guys, what proposal will you be making to the president, if you do, to the minister, if you do get the opportunity, of course, to bring your inputs forward? What best ways? Because I don't think, even as the cannabis industry, you don't want the regulations. I think you do want the regulations to be there, but they mustn't stifle the businesses. So what are you proposing that what form these regulations must take in a way that, yes, protects consumers, hold the businesses accountable, but doesn't kill them?
What we have in mind, we have clearly set out on our website, fieldsofgreenforall.org.za, where we have a manifesto that we spent 10 years working on, where we have a proposed model for how to manage the cannabis industry in South Africa. There's a lot of good concepts and ideas in that manifesto, so you're welcome to go and have a look at that. Everybody, it's free to download on our website. We think it's just fair that the president said this is not allowed from the Department of Health, because they cannot just pass a regulation without public consultation. We always say nothing about us without us, and this is a clear example of how things can go wrong. So the Department of Health should really be quite embarrassed about just trying to push a blanket ban like this, and to think that they would get away with it, because I can tell you what happened in the background in the last week or two since the announcement is quite huge. And should the president not have stopped these actions, then there would have been severe litigation from many directions.
Yeah. Okay, Shal, thank you so much for that. And Zakhele, just as we wrap up the conversation, you spoke about the contradictions of, this is what the president has said before about the potential of the industry, and this is the decision that the health department actually takes. Just help us understand just the potential that this industry has. We often hear of how 28 billion rand is what the industry could be worth. We hear of the many jobs, about 130,000 or so, that could be generated through the industry. What really is the potential of the cannabis industry?
Mm-hmm. Oh, the potential is pretty big. I think the government itself would be in a position, right, to even be more informed about this, because as you mentioned, they had a master plan that was released in 2019, and I think they're working on a much more recent version thereof. And the potential is great. Even Shah, who I did not know was part of Those for Green for All, I use their website. They are an amazing resource. But the jobs that will be created, because the quantification of it was premised on a very conservative estimate of the impact that it could have. But we are seeing in countries like the United States, or even in countries like Israel, any jurisdiction that has legalized cannabis has seen a tremendous amount of growth in that industry, not only in job creation, but in the revenue that is collected by the state itself, right? In the United States, Colorado is a leading example of this, on how it changed its fortunes just by being a leader in this industry, and how the government was able to collect so much revenue to be able to do other things. So the cannabis is great. It is the cannabis industry is great as an economic resource, because it has the potential to employ South Africans who aren't employed in their millions. I think, beyond the actual clairvoyance that we can do and try to guesstimate the good that can come from it, it's the fact that people who are currently not economically active or aren't being productive will be productive, and the government is making it impossible for those people to be productive without them breaking the law. I think that alone, on the substantive level, is enough for us to support any industry. So, yeah.
Zakhele Mthembu, thank you so much for making time for us. Legal researcher with the Free Market Foundation. Thanks to Michelle Clark as well, who is the DA Shadow Minister of Health. That takes us to 10:31. And for the latest in Eyewitness News headlines. Good morning, Maggie.
Thanks, Clement. Good morning. Johannesburg Mayor Dada Marero has acknowledged public opposition to the proposed renaming of Sandton Drive, but confirmed the proposal remains in the public consultation phase. In 2018, the city approved a motion to rename the road to Leila Khaled Drive in honor of the Palestinian freedom fighter. The council remains divided on the matter, with some opposing the change, citing concerns over sensitive diplomatic ties with the US, while others continue to support it. The lawyer for kidnapping and human trafficking accused Kelly Smith will continue his cross-examination of the state's main witness in the Jocelyn Smith trial today. Former accused turned state witness Laurentia Lombard became unwell again during cross-examination yesterday and was treated by paramedics before the matter was adjourned for her cross-examination to continue today. Lombard's testimony implicates Kelly and two other co-accused for the little girl's disappearance over a year ago. And South Korea wildfire's death toll has risen to 24. The East Asian nation is facing snowballing damage from some of its worst ever wildfires. More than a dozen different blazes broke out over the weekend, with the death toll jumping overnight as one major fire tore through villages and burnt a historical temple to the ground. Those are the headlines. This Eyewitness News and more at 11 o'clock or as it happens.
EWN Traffic.
Heading towards Bedfordview in the Edenvale area, there's slow-moving traffic. This is on the R24 westbound between Edenvale Road and the Gililees interchange, while in Germiston, that's leaving the CBD, slow-moving traffic M2 westbound between Refinery and the Galdenace interchange. Also heading into the Germiston CBD, there's an accident scene in the Denver area. This is M2 eastbound near Cleveland Road, causing heavy delays all the way from George Koch. Also in the Joburg CBD, slow-moving traffic heading towards Rivoli. This is on the M2 westbound between the Crown Interchange and Main Reef Road. And finally, in Four Ways, expect heavy delays N1 North between Malibonga Drive and Winnie Mandela Drive. I'll have your next Eyewitness News traffic update just after 11.
There's more EWN on air, online, and on the EWN app.
The
The Midday Report.
Weekdays,
12 to 1.
Full-time employment in the country has increased, but there are still many sectors that have declined.
Definitely, yes. The other thing that I need to put context into it with these numbers is that we are looking at VAT-registered business. So meaning that we don't look at the agriculture, and then we're also not looking at the private household. We are seeing that quarter to quarter, 4 out of 8 of these industries have shown a positive.
Solly Mulai, the acting DDG for population at Stats SA.
The Midday Report
With Mandy Wiener.
12 to 1 on 702.
702.
So we did a thing, a full commitment kind of thing. We've partnered with Sixt to bring worldwide to your doorstep. So you see how that's a serious thing, because that's what you deserve. We know you're the GOAT, so premium it is. Premium service, premium vehicles, premium you, premium us. Sani Sixt is all about adding extra to ordinary. Extra reach, extra countries, so you can be extra premium worldwide. Be the greatest of all time and rent Sony Sixt.
Meet the new Samsung Galaxy S25 series, the go-to phone for a go-to person. Need to find a pet-friendly Italian restaurant with outdoor seating and add it to your calendar? Just ask your true AI companion. With one voice command, it will be done. Buy the new Galaxy S25 series and add on a Galaxy Watch 7 from 49 Rand per month. Trade in and get up to 10,000 Rand back. Limited offer, valid until 31 March 2025. Galaxy S25 series. Your true AI companion. T's and C's apply.
Make soccer season legendary with Hollywood Bets. Aziz Shagay, Let's Play takes your disky passion to the next dimension. Light up the games with your best bet slip and stand a chance to win your share of 2 million Rand in prizes, including a brand new Toyota Fortuner. Bet a minimum of 10 Rand on any soccer fixture to qualify. T's and C's apply. Hollywood Sportsbook is a licensed betting operator. Hollywood Bets supports responsible gambling. No persons under the age of 18 years are permitted to gamble. Winners know when to stop. South African Responsible Gambling Foundation toll-free counselling line 0800 006 008 or WhatsApp help to 076 675 0710.
Get ready for an unforgettable Easter in Durban. Durban Tourism is rolling out the red carpet for visitors at the launch of West Town Square, where your shopping experience is set to reach new heights. Catch the Clement Manyathela Show live from the grand opening of West Town Square with Durban Tourism this Thursday, designed to bring the community together. Find out how this world-class shopping destination combines shopping, dining, and living and recreation to create a vibrant, thriving economic hub in Durban's Outer West. That's the Clement Manyathela Show live from West Town Square with Durban Tourism this Thursday on 702.
You're with Clement Manyathela.
702. Let's walk the talk.
24 minutes now before 11 o'clock. Who is Leo Brent Bozell III? That's the man that US President Donald Trump has nominated as the new ambassador to South Africa. So what we're going to do now is speak to David Smith, who is the Washington D.C. Bureau Chief for The Guardian, who is live to us from Washington, D.C., to tell us more about this man that Trump has nominated to be an ambassador to South Africa. His nomination has now been referred to the U.S. Senate Committee on Foreign Relations for consideration, but it's actually expected to be given the green light. But there are such interesting things about this man for us to know about. And of course, the question is whether or not, with the tensions that are high between the U.S. and South Africa, this is the man who can, yes, push for U.S. interests and advance them when he's here, balance that with also trying to help us rebuild the relations between South Africa and the United States. David, thank you so much for making time for us. Good morning.
Good morning. Great to be here.
So Leo Brent Bozell III is now the person that the Trump administration is nominating to be the ambassador to South Africa. Who is he?
Yeah, Brent Bozell is a right-winger who's been running a right-wing media watchdog for many years and really being part of that vanguard of the rise of right-wing media in America that I think has been so influential in dividing the country and helping Donald Trump win elections and so on. He is a problematic character, I think many people would say, for this position of US ambassador to South Africa. In 1989, his watchdog, the Media Research Center, put out a press release describing the ANC as, quote, pro-communist terrorist organization, close quote. He's also had some choice things to say about former US President Barack Obama. In 2012, Bozell described Obama as looking like a, quote, skinny ghetto crackhead, close quote. Two other things of great note I would say about Bozell is he's a staunch supporter of Israel. He even started trying to raise money for Israel after the October the 7th attack. And that, of course, is interesting at this moment when South Africa was leading that genocide case at the International Court of Justice over the war in Gaza. And another notable thing about Brent Bozell is his son was one of nearly 1,600 people convicted and sentenced after the January 6th attack on the in 2021 on the US Capitol, only to be later pardoned by Trump. And I think that ensured that, having been a one-time Trump critic, Bozell is now a big fan of the US president.
But he wasn't a fan of the US president before, was he?
Indeed. And in that sense, Bozell is like many American conservatives who were initially very suspicious of Trump. And that certainly included some Christian evangelicals and others. You know, they regarded Trump as staging a hostile takeover of the Republican Party, especially in 2016. Bozell described Trump as the greatest charlatan of them all, a huckster, a shameless self-promoter. Bozell said, God help this country if this man were president. And again, you know, like so many other conservatives over the years, for one reason or another, Bozell has made peace with Trump. Many would say sacrificing political principle in favor of power, and clearly Trump's decision to pardon Bozell's son, I think, really sealed the deal, and now he's fully aboard the Trump train.
Sure. I just want to clarify something there, David. Did you say that he once described Obama as a skinny ghetto crackhead?
Yes, this was in a Fox News interview in 2012. It is pretty startling, isn't it? He was initially joking with Sean Hannity, Fox News host. You know, what if he made a comment about the president of the United States and said he looked like a skinny ghetto crackhead? And then Bozell added, which, by the way, you might want to say that Barack Obama does. And, you know, he crossed the line from a joke to actually saying this. So, you know, this does not bode well for a man entering the racial complexities of South Africa.
So if he has described Donald Trump before as the greatest charlatan of them all, God help this country if this man were president, how, and this happens a lot in America, maybe you can help us as South Africans understand how politicians there then rationalize their approach and decisions when they now work with Donald Trump and they sing his praises, when previously they've said all these terrible things about him. And I mean, there's one thing to criticize a politician. We know they're no permanent friends or permanent enemies in politics. But some of the things that some Republicans say about Donald Trump, even during, you know, the presidential primaries or during the debate, and then boom, when they are not the Republican nominees, suddenly they start singing the praises of the man that they have been attacking so much because he has an opportunity for them to work with him. How does it work?
Yeah, I mean, as you speak, you're reminding me of two prime examples there. J.D. Vance, now Trump's vice president. Again, back in 2016, he was comparing Trump to Adolf Hitler, for example, and urging people not to vote for him and saying what a disaster it would be. And, you know, another interesting example is Marco Rubio, who was defeated by Trump in those Republican primaries in 2016. He said all sorts of negative things about Trump at the time, and predicted it'd be the end of the Republican Party and so on. Now Rubio sits at Trump's side as Secretary of State. So I mean, there you've got two of the most powerful men in this government, both former Trump critics, and so many others in the Republican Party have done the same. We've watched that journey. I think critics would say it's sheer spinelessness. It's selling their soul to the devil. It's making a Faustian pact that many of them deep down still believe the things they said nearly a decade ago. But they've seen the big crowds that Trump draws. They've seen him winning elections. They want a taste of that power, and they're willing to say and do anything for it. And they've also witnessed what has happened to those who stood their ground. Vice President Mike Pence, I mean, was sycophantic on many levels, but he refused to overturn the 2020 election and ended up with a mob storming the Capitol, calling for him to be hanged. And then there are other Republicans such as Liz Cheney, who was defeated in a primary election, and Adam Kinzinger, who was driven out by death threats and so on. If you're a Republican and you actually oppose Trump, you can get a lot of hate and hostility and threats to your family and so on. So many of these people have chosen the more convenient path.
Is this the same thing that happens also with Democrats?
No, I don't think so.
Okay.
One major political party in America is still relatively normal and mainstream, and like we see in the rest of the world. But the other party, as in the Republicans, have, I think, driven off a cliff and become a personality cult. And who knows if they can return to the Ronald Reagan, George Bush era one day. I'm not holding my breath.
Yeah, you may just hold that for way too long. It's just interesting how things are unfolding, especially for us who are outside of America. But back to Leo Brent Bozell III, his nomination has now been referred to the U.S. Senate Committee on Foreign Relations for consideration. What are the chances that this name may be rejected? And I'm asking that because this is the same committee that is chaired by the same person who I think is Jim Risch, if I'm not mistaken, who has previously pushed for South Africa to be kicked out of that program that allows sub-Saharan countries to have access to U.S. markets through AGOA. Do you see this nomination going through that committee successfully?
I think so. Republicans control everything right now. The White House, the House of Representatives, the Senate, even the Supreme Court. So there's a conservative majority. So we've seen nominee after nominee go through, including some very controversial Trump cabinet picks. Pete Hegseth as Defense Secretary and Tulsi Gabbard as Director of National Intelligence and so on, and Robert Kennedy Jr. as Health Secretary. And Democrats have tried to kick up a fuss and make noise and object, but ultimately on these committees, it's often like a 12-11 or 13-12 victory for the Republicans. Everybody votes on party lines, and Republicans have that majority. I know from personal experience there are some Democrats who care deeply about South Africa and about Africa generally. I'm sure they will voice objections and suggest this man is not an appropriate choice and not a good fit. But I assume Republicans, once again, very loyal to Trump and in many cases not knowing or caring that much about South Africa, sadly, will rubber stamp it. I mean, the only thing that seems to stop these nominees at the moment is some major personal scandal that's seen beyond the pale. As far as we know, Bozell does not have that.
Yeah. So, this man comes, and if he does, eventually get posted in South Africa following all the processes in the U.S., he's going to come here as tensions between South Africa and the U.S. have really escalated recently with the Trump administration members and right-wing groups here in South Africa really fanning those flames of misinformation. And one wonders if he's the type of person who believes that. Is he a type of person that you can engage with? South Africans are asking themselves now, what should they brace for? Is this someone, especially given the clash in our values between South Africa and the Trump administration, how do we even find common ground? Having assessed and looked at this man, what do you think we need to brace for as South Africa? I know it's a tough question. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I would brace for trouble and expect the worst potentially. I mean, as you're saying, relations between the two countries do seem at the lowest point for decades, and obviously that includes South Africa's ambassador to the US getting kicked out recently, and even just in the last few days, Elon Musk, of course, himself born in South Africa, now Donald Trump's close ally, was tweeting yet again along the lines of, very few people know that there is a major political party in South Africa that is actively promoting white genocide. And he made a lot of bogus claims, and Musk is actively stirring this. I think Trump, as much as he ever thinks about it, probably agrees, and everything we know about Bozell suggests, he'll be cut from the same cloth. He'll be listening to Elon Musk on issues like that, and coming in, trying to wield a sledgehammer and cause trouble. So I don't know what common ground there is going to be found. Certainly not on the issue of Israel, for example. Maybe on issues around the economy. Maybe even a bit on Russia and Ukraine. I don't know, but it's going to be a rough ride, I think, and maybe one of those moments when you look beyond the ambassador to some of the more long-standing officials, or find other ways to communicate.
Yeah. So in short, we have to buckle up. I want to ask you about just what you're hearing in Washington, D.C., in as far as our potential nomination is concerned for ambassador there. Our president has indicated he's taking his time. He doesn't want to rush appointing the South African ambassador to the U.S. There are a lot of considerations that he has to make, so many suggestions of who he should be appointing. Some people feel, appoint someone who's white, maybe appoint someone who's Afrikaner, who maybe from the ANC, but someone who is from this group of people that Trump somehow believes are being persecuted in South Africa, just so that you appease him on that front. But there's some people who feel, no, appoint whoever you want to appoint as South Africa. But the problem with that is, when the credentials have got to be adopted and accepted by the U.S. as well. Could we be facing a situation where the U.S., with all this hostility, they reject the candidate or the person the president appoints as an ambassador? What are you hearing on the ground about what will potentially be our next ambassador, and how the white administration may respond to that?
Yeah, and in terms of what you're saying, I've heard that rumor that Andreas Nell, for example, might be one contender. I think it's one of these cases where if an ambassador was nominated who had some unfortunate statements in their past, and the right-wing Twitter or X mob and others could sort of dig up something where, oh, look, 15 years ago, this person shouted, kill the Boer, or something like white genocide or something, then that would play extremely badly. And it's, again, one of those that I don't think Donald Trump himself spends that much time thinking about, but a single tweet from Elon Musk or an online outcry could scuttle such a nomination. But otherwise, if it's a relatively mainstream person, black or white, who doesn't have tricky statements in their past, I think it would probably be fine. Again, more through benign neglect than anything else. That there's such a full agenda every day, so many scandals and controversies and foreign wars and other things occupying the time. I don't think they're going to go out of their way to create a problem here. And in terms of that dilemma that you outlined, do you deliberately play nice with Trump and bend the knee, or do you do your own thing and go more aggressively? Always a hard one to judge. All I would say is, I remember, we had a single week recently where Emmanuel Macron of France and Keir Starmer of Britain both, laid on the flattery pretty thick and told Trump how great he was. And those meetings went quite smoothly. And Starmer, for example, came clutching a letter inviting Trump to meet the King of Britain and so on. And then 2 or 3 days later, Volodymyr Zelensky of Ukraine showed up with a slightly more combative mode, and that went very badly, and he was drummed out of the White House, and there was a terrible display of bullying and berating and so on. And I think some people felt not for one moment would they defend what Trump did, which was disgraceful and an incredible diplomatic disaster. But they also felt, perhaps Zelensky could have played it differently diplomatically and just flattered Trump's ego and said nice things and kept him happy as Macron and Starmer had done. So I think you saw in that single week both approaches, and some would argue the merits of one and some the other. I mean, I think domestically in Ukraine, Zelensky actually got a lot of respect for standing up to Trump, but arguably pushed back the peace talks a little bit.
Yeah. Just lastly, before we wrap up, David, I want to ask you about something I told the listeners about yesterday, this unbelievable story of these senior officials in the Trump administration, who included the vice president and the secretary of state, by the way, who were discussing this highly sensitive, classified information on that messaging service Signal, unaware that there's a journalist in the group who was seemingly invited by mistake. I mean, there was shock and disbelief around the world, and I'm sure in DC as well, because this journalist was included in a group chat with these senior officials in the Trump administration talking about these war plans in Yemen, sensitive security information that could have serious implications, where they're even sharing emojis. You look at the language that they used. How is the Senate and just the congressmen and women responding to this? I mean, I know Democrats have been wanting to interrogate officials over this security breach. Has that happened? Is that expected to happen? How's the Trump administration explaining this?
Yeah, it's certainly a shocker that has stunned Washington, an incredible security breach. And Democrats got lucky because there was already scheduled to be a Senate hearing on Tuesday that included the Director of National Intelligence, Tulsi Gabbard, and the CIA Director, John Radcliffe. So there was no escape for them. They were publicly grilled about this and were pretty evasive, and sometimes you could see all the wheels turning, and they were claiming that this information was not classified, to which the Democrats responded, well, if that's the case, why don't you just reveal these messages? And they had no answer to that. It was quite a rough ride, and probably just the boost that the Democrats needed after a bad few weeks to be able to turn the fire on the Trump administration. Trump himself claims this is just a glitch and it wasn't classified. And I think his view is this will all blow over in a few days. But yeah, it's the only story in town at the moment. It's getting a lot of scrutiny and coverage. Many Democrats saying that heads should roll, that some of these leading figures, such as Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth, should resign over this. They're articulating how this could have put the lives of the US military at risk if this information had fallen into the wrong hands. And surprise, surprise, the Trump administration might actually be making it worse for themselves because, they've got on the offensive trying to denounce this journalist as, quote, a sleazebag. And Trump saying that nobody reads this magazine and it's going downhill and so on, and disputing some of this report, and that has led some to say journalist Jeffrey Goldberg should publish all the conversation, all the messages in this Signal group.
Yeah, that is David Smith there, who is the Washington DC's bureau chief for The Guardian.
They say, on the day of his birth, he drove his mother home, and he once escaped a female shark attack using nothing but his charm. And he drives a tank. Discover the GWM Tank 300, now with a 2.4-liter turbo diesel from $8099 per month. Visit gwm.coza for T's and C's and to book a test drive. The new Tank 300 diesel. Go with more. Go with GWM.
Most people already know that the smartest way to get through tolls is with a tag. With a tag, you don't need to carry cash or even use your credit card. You don't even have to stop or open a window. To drive smart, download the Sanral app to link your cards and manage top-up payments for your convenience. For more info, visit sunral.co.za. Tags are the way to go. Sunral, an agency of the Department of Transport.
If you're balancing the books like a pro 1 minute and then running off for some last minute supplies the next, you're definitely a small business owner. MTN gets it. SME owners wear many hats brilliantly. That's why MTN and 702 want to celebrate all the incredible SMEs of Gauteng for being such a vibrant force in South Africa's economy. With the 702 Small Business Awards brought to you by MTN, because MTN is here to help SMEs make the moves they need to grow. Visit primemediaplus.com now. Enter your SME or nominate an awesome small business and they could be a finalist in the 702 Small Business Awards brought to you by MTN. Today, we make moves. T's and C's and more on primemediaplus.com.
This is EWN.
Good morning, I'm Mikey Malapo. Johannesburg Mayor Dada Morero has acknowledged public opposition to the proposed renaming of Sandton Drive, but confirmed the proposal remains in the public consultation phase. In 2018, the city approved a motion to rename the road to Leila Khaled Drive in honor of the Palestinian freedom fighter. The city council remains divided on the matter, with some opposing the change, citing concerns over sensitive diplomatic ties with the US, while others continue to support it. If the name change goes ahead, the United States consulate in Sandton would be located on a street named after a person the current U.S. government refers to as a terrorist. Speaking at a media briefing this morning, Morero emphasized the city has yet to reach a final decision on the renaming.
On the renaming of Sandton Drive, Pule, the city of Johannesburg reaffirms its commitment to diplomatic sensitivity in the Sandton Drive renaming process. It is also important to note that this resolution was arrived at in 2018 at the point where the Democratic Alliance was in government.
The Hawks have revealed that the suspects arrested in connection with the attack on patrollers at the Merimi informal settlement in Soshanguve are linked to other crimes they committed in the same week. The investigating unit says the suspects are linked to a number of house robberies and murders which took place on Friday. The two suspects allegedly attacked the patrollers on Saturday, killing 6 members. 4 others remain hospitalized under police guard. Hawks spokesperson Christopher Singo says the suspects will appear in court today.
According to the information, the suspects are allegedly linked to murders and house robberies that occurred on 21 February 2025. Both the suspects are expected to appear before the Pretoria North Magistrate Court on 26 March 2025 on charges of murder, attempted murder, possession of unlicensed firearms and ammunition.
Meanwhile, a memorial service for the victims is set to take place this afternoon. Parliament's Cooperative Governance Committee wants National Treasury to explain why it's only allocated funds to the Western Cape to fix infrastructure damaged by floods last year. The department says it's assisted all affected provinces to compile their submissions for funding and believes there's been overreach by the fiscus to reject applications from other provinces. Committee Chairperson Zweli Mkhize says the disparity in helping provinces to repair and mitigate against future occurrences can't be tolerated. Lindsay Dentlinger has more.
Probing why provinces affected by disasters in 2024 have not received funds to repair the damage, the Department of Cooperative Governance says their submissions are not meeting Treasury requirements. Committee Chairperson Zweli Mkhize has questioned whether the department is failing provinces in compiling these submissions or whether provinces lack the capacity to do so.
You cannot expect that there should be a situation where there is a whimsical allocation of resources on provinces that have the same problem, and there's no sense of trying to create a sense of justice.
Minister Velenkosini Hlabisa says he was surprised that only one province received disaster funding.
If we leave it at the discretion of Treasury, there shall be no equity for a long time.
Provinces which have recently been impacted by flooding and where a state of disaster has been declared are yet to make submissions for funding. Lindsay Dentlinger, Eyewitness News, Parliament.
In the courts, the lawyer of kidnapping and human trafficking accused Kelly Smith will continue his cross-examination of the state's main witness in the Jocelyn Smith trial today. Former accused turned state witness Laurentia Lombard became unwell again during cross-examination yesterday and was treated by paramedics before the matter was adjourned for her cross-examination to continue today. Lombard's testimony implicates Kelly and two other accused for the little girl's disappearance over a year ago. Carla Peterson reports.
Kelly Smith's lawyer, Ranesh Narayan, was about to start questioning Laurentia Lombard about a statement she made to police after her arrest in March last year when the matter was adjourned. Lombard asked to be excused for the fourth time during proceedings since her cross-examination began just more than a week ago after telling the court she felt lightheaded. She was later seen being attended to by paramedics, prompting Judge Nathan Erasmus to adjourn the matter. Lombard previously testified she witnessed Smith sell Jocelyn to a Sangoma for 20,000 rand. Siv Narayan is expected to provide Smith's version of what happened on the day Jocelyn went missing when the trial resumes today. Carlo Peterson, Eyewitness News, Saldanha Bay.
And the South Korea wildfire death toll has risen to 24. The East Asian nation is facing snowballing damage from some of its worst ever wildfires. More than a dozen different blazes broke out over the weekend, with the death toll jumping overnight as one major fire tore through villages and burned a historical temple to the ground. The government has raised the crisis alert to its highest level and declared a full-scale national response to bring the fires under control. More than 23,000 people have been evacuated. Officials have warned that the death toll could rise further, with more people injured, and the blaze is still not under control. Gold's trading at $3,023.42 an ounce, the rand at 18.25 to the dollar, at 23.56 to the pound, at 19.71 to the euro. Brent crude oil at $73.33 a barrel.
If you're heading towards Bedfordview, there's slow-moving traffic in the Edenville area. This is R24 westbound between Edenville Road and the Kilulis interchange. Also heading towards the Germiston CBD, slow-moving traffic due to an accident scene. This is on the M2 eastbound before the Cleveland off-ramp, and leaving the Joburg CBD. Expect some delays on the M2 westbound between the Crown interchange and Main Reef Road.
In your weather, partly cloudy skies in store for Gauteng today with scattered showers and thunder showers expected. Temperatures are set to peak at highs of 28 degrees. The top story in Eyewitness News this hour. Johannesburg Mayor Dada Morero has acknowledged public opposition to the proposed renaming of Santon Drive, but confirmed the proposal remains in public consultation processes.
EWN, in touch, in tune and independent. For the latest, visit ewn.co.za or download the EWN app.
You're with Clement Manyathela
on 702.
Let's walk the talk. Streaming on the Prime Media Plus app.
DSTV channel 856,
92.7 and 106 FM.
8 minutes up to 11 o'clock. Dumelang, welcome to the third and final hour of the Clement Manyathela Show. Time now for our Listener's Choice feature.
Burning questions. Insightful answers. Listener's Choice. With Clement Manyathela.
On our Listener's Choice feature this morning, we are discussing the Gaza ceasefire, which clearly now hangs in the balance or has failed to hold. One of our listeners has asked that we discuss the latest attacks on Gaza and what that means for that ceasefire that was agreed to recently. Israel has resumed its military campaign in Gaza following nearly 2 months of ceasefire, blaming Hamas for rejecting a new U.S. proposal to extend the truce. Hamas, in turn, has accused Israel of abandoning the original deal that was agreed to. There are hundreds of Palestinians now that have been killed from reports. I saw the BBC also reporting that thousands have been displaced since the Israeli military operations resumed with airstrikes on the 18th of March. Remember, the first stage of this 3-phase deal arranged by the US, Qatar and Egypt ended on the 1st of March. And as the second phase remains unresolved and it's unclear what is actually going to happen next. We have seen an intense wave of airstrikes recently by Israel on Gaza. But what does it actually mean for the ceasefire? So one of our listeners wanted to know more about this. We've invited Dr. Faith Mabera, who is a postdoctoral fellow at Wits University, joining us now on the line. We also are going to be joined by someone, hopefully in Gaza. The producers are chasing someone who can at least help us understand what the situation is on the ground there in Palestine, and if the airstrikes are still being launched by Israel. Dr. Mabera, thank you so much for making time for us. We'll start with you. Good morning.
Good morning, Clement. Good morning to the listeners.
So how did we get here? Because we were all celebrating the ceasefire that was agreed to. It looked like, Donald Trump was happy that the parties were playing ball, and then boom, we take a few steps back, and now airstrikes are being launched on Gaza once again.
It seems that as the implementation of the ceasefire was taking place, there were telltale signs that there was an unraveling towards the rather broad goal of Israel to resume its genocidal campaign on Gaza. And now you are right in saying that we saw the progression of the implementation of the first phase, which effectively ended and would naturally progress on to implementation of the second. But this is where it's important to note that Israel was actually dragging its feet on moving towards phase 2 of the ceasefire. Phase 2 particularly was going to entail the release of the remaining hostages, 1, and 2, the movement or the realization of a permanent ceasefire and the complete withdrawal of Israeli troops from the Strip. So with Israel now having the broader objective in mind of really at the tail end resuming its military campaign, it continued to drag its feet on that and in fact decided now to unilaterally resume hostilities, obviously with the backing of the US. And it's interesting some of the language that they've used to couch their intention. Of course, that they knew that they actually wanted to alter some terms of the original ceasefire deal. We saw that also the U.S. envoy for the Middle East actually pushing forward proposing the extension of the first phase and releasing a maximum number of Israeli captives without commitment to ending the war in Gaza. So this confluence of factors is what they knew that Hamas would probably, of course, not agree to this terms, and they were banking on that refusal to unilaterally resume hostilities, which is what we've seen happening. But even against that backdrop, there were also other signs that were at play for a keen observer. One was we saw the imposition of a total blockade on food, water, electricity, and fuel into the Strip. This happened earlier this month, and this, of course, pointed to the fact that Israel wanted to actually see the ceasefire break down and to allow it to move into. And of course, we can get into the larger conversation about the other confluence of factors that fed into the breakdown of the factors, and particularly the very important element of domestic politics within Israel itself, and how resumption of the war on Netanyahu's part was critical to his political survival in really navigating the very shaky politics of Israeli coalitional government arrangement.
Yeah, and we'll talk about that political aspect of political survival on the part of the Israeli Prime Minister. But now that we're seeing the bombardment continuing, I mean, Israel's argument is that, well, we're targeting Hamas leaders here, and I think there was a recognition and acknowledgement from Hamas a couple of days ago that one of their senior leaders was actually targeted. Where does this leave Qatar? Where's Qatar here? Where's the US? Where's Egypt? All these people that had sat down and managed to get the two parties to agree to a ceasefire. Have they given up?
They haven't given up, but in fact, they have, for all intents and purposes, demonstrated a kind of lack of political will, if you will, to actually convince Trump to maintain pressure on Netanyahu to detract from his larger war aims. And it's this emboldening act and this kind of very muted, very feckless response that sort of allowed for Netanyahu to ultimately pursue his resumption of hostilities. I say this because we saw late last month the holding of an Arab summit, bringing together all the Arab nations to try and really put forward a counter proposal to Trump's own proposal of clearing out or displacement of Palestinians. That whole idea of taking over the Strip and converting it into a riviera of sorts, which the Arab public was not going to take it sitting. So they did put forward a counter proposal and said for a plan to allow for a role for the Palestinian Authority to actually maintain administration duties after in a post-war thing, and also allow for a plan for a ceasefire to hold without the displacement of Palestinians. But of course, this needed significant backing, needed significant political will for it to actually materialize. And now the Trump factor emerges, the backing or the actual emboldening of Trump for Netanyahu's actions and giving the green light for some of his own bigger geostrategic and geopolitical aims, I think is also an important element that has really sort of added fuel to the fire in this case.
Yeah. How have other parties, especially parties who negotiated the ceasefire, how have they felt about the U.S. president's plan for Gaza? And he has a completely different plan. He was saying that people must not return to Gaza. In fact, they must go to neighboring countries of Jordan, of Egypt. He was even saying we can give those people billions of dollars to take these refugees, so to speak, because he's got a different plan for Gaza. He wants to turn it into some kind of resort. I mean, statements like that are not so helpful when you have parties that have agreed on a ceasefire and you are making threats that if they don't do this, which was not even part of the original ceasefire, like release all the hostages now, when in fact the ceasefire has phases to it. How did that complicate things between the two parties, and what's been the reaction of the other parties that were responsible to get us to this part where there is a ceasefire?
So this is where I was talking about the fact that the U.S. has become increasingly beholden to Israeli war aims. So we see how you're right in saying that the implementation of the ceasefire, remember, was also unfolding against ongoing discussions about potentially what a post-war future for Gaza would look like. And this is where we saw a lot of the true colors or the true intent of what Israel was really aiming for. So rather than pushing that, we saw the U.S. sending mixed messages, as I've alluded to. And secondly, also, in a way, advantageously pushing also an alternative that increasingly looked like it favored more of the Israeli viewpoint that would have Hamas surrender leverage in the form of hostages while offering nothing in return in the form of a permanent ceasefire. Of course, this was not acceptable for Hamas. And you're asking about the Arab Street. The Arab Street, the Arab public were not going to surrender the fate of the Palestinians in the name of allowing their complete annihilation of a population and the displacement from their homeland. That was not going to be something that they would be agreeable to in the long term. So it's also a question of might, because in this case you have an emboldened Netanyahu, in fact, who's receiving billions of dollars, billions worth of military support from the U.S. and also pushing and trying to balance the political act in his own backyard, while also aiming for a larger military campaign, this idea of the greater Israel. In fact, you can't even look at the situation in Gaza without considering what's been happening in the West Bank and also the multi-front offensive that has been happening in places like Syria and Lebanon. So all this cohere to form this very volatile situation that's happening with respect to the Gaza offensive and also the larger stability with regard to Israel and its neighborhood.
Yeah. I've got some WhatsApps coming through. 072-702-1702. If you've got a question for my guest this morning, Faith Mabera, who is the postdoctoral fellow at VERDS, a senior researcher at the Institute for Global Dialogue, joining us and helping us really make sense of what's happening in the Middle East. There was a ceasefire that was agreed to, but then, things escalated. There have been accusations and counter-accusations. You had Israel coming out and saying, well, it's Hamas that is refusing to listen to us. They're rejecting this new U.S. proposal to extend the truce. And Hamas, in turn, was saying that Israel is the one that's abandoning the original deal that was agreed to in January. Let's start with your WhatsApps.
Good morning, Clement. On the point you just mentioned where Israel says they're targeting Hamas, it's absolute nonsense. They have bombed hospitals, which is an international crime. They have bombed civilians. Just last week, more than 200 children were bombed, killed. They have targeted journalists. Since this thing started in 2023, Israel has killed more than 200 journalists. Every time Israel releases a statement, it's later proven to be lies. You cannot bomb a hospital and then come out and say we killed one Hamas leader when you have killed hundreds of others around that leader. That is not how war is conducted. That is criminal. I'm sorry, but I'm angry about the fact that Israel is getting away with war crimes and nobody's speaking about it. Tsepo, Soweto.
Tsepo, thank you so much for your input. And of course, Dr. Mabera, what Israel says here often is, when we bomb even a hospital, that's because Hamas leaders are hiding there, and they always use this justification that there's always going to be collateral in any war.
Of course, and I agree with what the listener was saying. There's simply no other way to describe some of it, the strategy that Israel has employed in Gaza. Starvation, cutting off aid supplies, systematic destruction of not only civilian infrastructure, but also healthcare facilities. As we've mentioned, the deliberate attacks on medical staff, on journalists, entirely razing down towns and neighborhoods. If this is not genocidal intent, then I don't know what will genocidal intent. In fact, earlier we were talking about, we were going to touch on Israeli politics, the influence of Israeli politics. In fact, on one hand, the resumption of hostilities on the part of Netanyahu, it's almost as if it's received an upswing politically, because by resuming hostilities, we've now seen a key member of his far-right coalition, former National Security Minister Itamar Ben-Gvir, returning to his coalition. So that strengthened his coalitional base. And then on top of that, also another of his key allies is Finance Minister Smotrich, who have been calling for total elimination of or annihilation of Palestinians, and they want to really amp up in terms of the force and military force that Israel is visiting upon the Gazans without hesitation. So they don't even have the kind of guardrails that we would, or considerations of guardrails that we would consider in terms of persecuting war in the conventional sense.
Good morning, Clement. I think, when it comes to this Gaza ceasefire deal, the reality is that now, under this next 4 years, Netanyahu is very emboldened to take over Gaza. So, what needs to happen is that, I don't know, to resolve this, I think the Palestinians need to realize the fact that it's only going to get worse, because already we've witnessed the genocide of, I think it's over 50,000 people. People estimate that the death toll could be worse. And I honestly think that the next 4 years is just going to bring about more killing, more bombing, more bloodshed. 70% of the victims are already women and children, So the question is, what must happen? Are these people going to leave on their own and go resettle elsewhere, or are they going to be basically exterminated? I think that's the two choices that are facing them under, this next 4 years, and while Netanyahu also remains in power in Israel. This is Koketso from Joburg.
But would that be fair, Koketso? And of course, there's that case in the ICJ where South Africa is trying to prove their case that there's a genocide here that's been perpetrated in Israel and in Gaza, and hopefully that's not going to take too many years until we actually have judgment on that matter. But Dr. Mabera, is that something to do for Koketso? Is suggesting, the people in Gaza must realize that things are only going to get worse from here, because there are thousands, in fact, of people that have been killed, and not just the civilians. There are journalists that have been killed. There are aid workers that have been killed. There are doctors that have been killed. So maybe just move away from this particular area, because there are going to be more deaths. Wouldn't that be submitting to Israel?
And even to put it differently, I think it just speaks to the kind of resolve and the fight that the Palestinians have in really realizing their cause. It's not an easy situation to be in, and the outlook certainly remains grim. In fact, you are right in saying, if you look at the most recent reports of casualties, it's truly heartbreaking. So from the 15-month-long the latest hostilities, which began in October, we've seen about reports, at least from the Palestinian and Gazan healthcare authorities, about 50,000 killed, and out of the 50,000, 15,000 or thereabout are women and children. So that tells you who is being targeted specifically, and the underlying reasons why you'd attack civilians, and particularly women and children. It speaks to also the larger intent about ethnic cleansing and systematic genocidal intent that we've been hearing very clearly with reference to this case. And also remember, it gets grim because while there's broader talk about intensification of military operations, including possibility of launching a ground invasion, it's this idea of how there's been almost pushing announcements of certain very abrupt sort of displacement and announcements and evacuation orders from Israel, which essentially pushes a mass of people towards a particular area, and then they end up being bombarded in that very location. And this airstrike, particularly the choice to use bombing from the air and aerial bombardment, is deliberate, because Netanyahu knows that he actually doesn't have the sufficient or the requisite willpower to amass the necessary ground invasion force, particularly because of also the pushback from the Israeli public, who are dropping out of conscription and service in the reserve forces. It's really dropping significantly. So this idea of consolidating a hold and opting for the most, I would say, choice of weapons with widespread effect, which is the airstrikes, is what we've seen also really inform a lot of the strategies. There isn't a particular military strategy or a theory of victory. It's just purely elimination of a particular race of people, in this case, the Palestinians.
My question, Clement, to you and your guest is, are the people of Palestine supporting Hamas to what they've started doing? Are they still supporting them while among them, fighting for them? Because it seems like the people of Palestine are supporting Hamas. Because if they were not supporting Hamas, they could have rebelled against Hamas and pushed them away from their territories. Because it seems like to me, the people are also supporting Hamas. Can you answer that question for me, Case and Kahis?
Hi, Clement. What is the role of Arab countries like Saudi Arabia, which seems to me is more concerned about Russia-Ukraine war than the Palestine and Israel war? Thanks, David.
Thank you, David. The question, Dr. Mabera, was around people in Gaza and whether they support Hamas. Of course, Hamas was elected by the people in Gaza. I actually saw yesterday, was it on the BBC? There were hundreds of people that were also protesting in Gaza. They were joining some protests in Gaza. Some were anti-Hamas protests since this war began. So there are people who still support Hamas. They appointed Hamas as leaders in that region of Palestine. But of course, there are other people that are against Hamas. Yeah, Dr. Mabera?
Yes, so Hamas, in terms of representation of the broader resistance, particularly the intent to take the fight to Israel, has received popular legitimacy in the eyes of the Palestinians, because they realized that this was not going to end, particularly on the political side of things. It needed to escalate into escalated into violent confrontation, particularly in defense of their calls for not only recognition in terms of statehood, but also just their desire to live in peace. So if you have a willfully belligerent neighbor who decides to ignore all elements of international law and for all intents and purposes continually bombard and launch attacks on you, will you sit back and say, we have a choice as to who's going to defend us? While, for instance, if you look at something like the Palestinian administration authorities, they still needed a military wing to back up their cause. So it's a combination of tactics at the strategic level. On one hand, you have parties advocating for a political cause, but at that end, it needs to be met with a sufficient and requisite military backing in order to really realize your aims. And this is what Hamas essentially represents in terms of political and military power in Gaza. So the logical case, of course, in the name of survival, is that you align with those who are fighting for your survival and fighting for your cause. As to the question of the Arab parties, I think we've already discussed that it's a case of political will on their part, and also not, if they were to side with any sort of proposal that would see a displacement of Palestinians, they would have to really contend with anger from their own populations, and it would be seen as a betrayal of the larger support for the Arab people and also support for the Palestinian cause. They wouldn't want to be caught in that particular position. So hence, they're trying to really create room for maneuver in a situation where you have Israel hyperinflating threats, Israel also really sourcing for support from a powerful backer in the form of the U.S.
Yeah, Dr. Faith Mabera, a postdoctoral fellow at Vets, thank you for making time for us. It's 11:32. Time for the latest in Eyewitness News headlines. Mbali, hi.
Thanks, Clement. A very good morning. A memorial service for the 6 community safety patrollers who were killed in Soshanguve at the weekend is set to take place this afternoon. The patrollers came under attack at the Marimi informal settlement on Saturday morning. 4 others are still in hospital under police guard pending an investigation. Joburg Mayor Dada Morero has warned political parties to practice diplomatic sensitivity when raising frustrations over the proposed renaming of Santon Drive. The bid to rename the road to Leila Khaled Drive is currently in the consultation process. With the American Embassy located on Santon Drive, there are suggestions that renaming it after the Palestinian struggle icon will worsen diplomatic tensions with the U.S. And the University of Limpopo's decision to deregister 2 masters
master's degree students who are on the verge of their graduation has now been set aside by the courts. Ntando Mnguni and Pilisiwe Cele took the university to court after it cancelled their studies 2 years into their qualification. Those are the headlines this EWN and more at midday or as it happens.
EWN Traffic.
In Denver, we still have slow-moving traffic heading towards Germiston. This is due to an earlier accident on the M2 East. This is before Cleveland Road. There's also slow-moving traffic leaving the Joburg CBD. That's the M2 westbound between the Crown Interchange and Main Reef Road. While in Edenville, traveling towards Bedford-View, bumper-to-bumper traffic, R24 westbound between Edenville Road and the Gilulis Interchange. And finally in Benoni, there's slow-moving traffic on Atlas Road approaching North Rand Road due to an earlier accident. I'll have your next Eyewitness News traffic update just after 12.
There's more EWN on air, online, and on the EWN app.
The Sharing Space
On the Clement Manyathela Show.
702.
25 minutes before 12 o'clock, time for the Sharing Space. This is where we share our stories on the Clement Manyathela Show. Stuff that's probably happened at home, something that happened in your office, something that happened at work, with your partner while you were flying, traveling, whatever the case is. And we share our stories. If you want to share yours, you can send us an email on cm@702.co.za. That's where you can share your stories with us, and then we'll read your email, or we can get you to send us a voice note if that's what you prefer. Now, we're going to do a different kind of a sharing space today because there was a bit of a conversation that was taking place that was inspired by a particular designer, Tsepo Masheru, who is with Relevance for Men, right? And Tsepo posted something that has gotten a lot of people talking, and this is something that has intrigued me. It's intrigued some of my friends as well. So Tsepo said, please don't wear a suit with an Apple Watch. Refrain from this if you can. Right? I'm going to repeat that. It says, please don't wear a suit with an Apple Watch. Refrain if you can. And I know a few gents saw this, and there's some of them who sent me a message and thought, hi Bo, what is wrong with us wearing our Apple Watches with our suits? So I thought, okay, I'll get Tsepo to come on air just to tell us why this actually actually doesn't work, and is it really a cardinal fashion sin? I want you to share your thoughts with us though as well on 011-883-0702. Do you agree with him? Like, do you think that it really messes up the fashion? I mean, maybe you can wear it with your jeans and maybe your golf tee, but with a suit, maybe no. I have found myself wearing my Apple Watch with a suit when I'm emceeing events and I'm wearing a tuxedo. Sometimes I've got my Apple Watch. And now I feel so bad because I'm thinking, what were people thinking if really this is frowned upon in some quarters? Tsepo Masheru join us now on the line. He's a suit tailor, and as I said to you, the founder of Relevance for Men. Tsepo, thank you so much for joining us, man. Good morning.
Good morning, brother. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, thank you for coming through. I mean, I'm feeling so bad now because all of those tuxedos I've been wearing with my Apple Watch, did I look ridiculous?
Not really, brother. Look, to be honest, let's backtrack a bit. There's a purpose and a reason for every item that's being manufactured, right? And that's why we've got dress watches, which are preferably preferred to be paired with a suit or a tux, and that's why we've got sports or digital watches like your Apple Watch and so on and so forth. Which, as you said, I loved how you put it. It works best with sportswear. It works best with with casual way. But also, on the flip side of things, I understand where our brothers are coming from, because they need to keep their, they need to count their steps. They also need to just make sure that on the health side of things, and there's vitality now, right?
Yeah.
So people want points too. So I understand where they're coming from, but if we break it down as a fashion designer, and I've got a client in front of me that's asking for advice, I'm getting married this weekend. I've bought a watch. What type of watch should I go for? I definitely can advise that they should go for an Apple one. They need to go for a dress watch, but it also doesn't necessarily mean that it's set in stone. People can do what they prefer, and I understand where they're coming from. But if you can and you can be able to afford it, it's best to get a watch for every occasion, depending on what you're wearing.
Okay, so so if I don't have like a dress watch, maybe I only own an Apple Watch. When you're wearing a tux or you're wearing a suit, you can put it aside, because also it's not like people are gonna see the watch most of the time. I mean, if you're wearing a suit, it's okay for you not to have something on your wrist, or must you always have something there with a suit? It just complements it better. What do you advise there?
Look, it definitely looks better with the dress, with a thin dress watch, you know. It definitely looks better, but it's not a train smash also if you don't have one. Personally, instead of putting on an Apple Watch, I'd rather wear my suit without a watch at all.
Okay, Tsepo, thank you so much, brother. I think that's some nice, great fashion advice there. Let me hear from you now. That's Tsepo Mashiro, who's a suit tailor. He says, if you can, just don't wear a suit with an Apple Watch. Refrain if you can. Are you a type of person that wears your Apple Watch with your suit? I mean, some people have said, I'm tracking my steps even in my dapper state. Even when I'm wearing that suit, I still want to follow on and track my steps. And I wonder what fashion mismatch you have observed with formal clothes, or maybe just generally, because these days you've got people who really take creativity too far, even when they're in their formal clothes. It's 40 minutes before 12 o'clock. I'm going to come back with your calls on this on 011-883-0702. WhatsApp's on 072-702-1702.
John Perlman. Weekday afternoons,
3 to 6.
Should we be doing more, either in terms of legal framework or some kind of formalization? Because as you rightly point out, they do it with goodwill. They put themselves at personal risk, as we've seen. Should they be legally under greater control? But secondly, should that not be the gateway to them getting more backing?
That should be the gateway to them getting backing, John, from this basis. They are a force multiplier. They are a number multiplier on the ground for the police.
John Perlman.
3 to 6 on 702.
Dear Journal, day 4642 of trying to be an adult. I miss when being a millennial meant I was young, dumb, and broke. Now, it just means I'm old, out of touch, and, you guessed it, still broke.
Aggressively realizing your age? Get covered at pineapple.co.za. It's simple and like 19 Rand a day, so it's 100% the insurance for you. Underwritten by Old Mutual Alternative Risk Transfer Insurer Limited, a licensed non-life insurer and authorized FSP. Premiums are risk profile dependent.
Today, standing out in the job market is more important than ever. Postnet and Huru are here to help you succeed. Did you know that many organizations require a criminal record check before hiring? From educators to retailers, drivers to lawyers and more, Postnet has you covered. For just 305 Rand, add a Huru criminal record check to your CV and stand out from the crowd. Visit your nearest Postnet today. Postnet, helping you succeed.
If you're balancing the books like a pro 1 minute and then running off for some last minute supplies the next, you're definitely a small business owner. MTN gets it. SME owners wear many hats brilliantly. That's why MTN in 702 want to celebrate all the incredible SMEs of Gauteng for being such a vibrant force in South Africa's economy. With the 702 Small Business Awards brought to you by MTN, because MTN is here to help SMEs make the moves they need to grow. Visit primemediaplus.com now enter your SME or nominate an awesome small business, and they could be a finalist in the 702 Small Business Awards, brought to you by MTN. Today, we make moves. T's and C's and more on primemediaplus.com.
The Sharing Space
on the Clement Manyathela Show.
702.
It's 17 minutes now before 12 o'clock. Let's go straight to your WhatsApps.
No. You can't wear that one with an Apple Watch. A suit is formal and that watch is sporty. It's a casual sporty wear. So you can't wear the two together. Simba in 4 ways.
And does it also matter, guys, what kind of watch you have? Because you've got, Apple Watch Series 10, you've got the Apple Watch Ultra 2, Apple Watch SE. There are a number of them. So, there are some that I think somehow could complement a bit if you were wearing it with a suit, even though it's a sportswear. But there are others that I think completely, they're just on your face. They are a sportswear. I don't know. I don't know what the difference is really with the different, what the different watches are. I just know mine. I got it last year. It's the thicker one. What do you call it? I don't know what they call it. The latest one from last year. And that's why I sometimes feel like, it's got a bit of dignity. That's why I think I can put it with, I can put it on even with a suit. Someone recommends though that you can put, just put a string on, like a different strap on, right? So you can still maybe wear it, but with a different strap, because that other strap is just way too sporty. What do you think? Is anybody who wears a suit with an Apple Watch, is that a yay or a nay?
You, Clement, agree with Tepo 100%. It doesn't look classy to wear a beautiful dress or a suit or, with a big, fat Apple Watch, really. You've got the whole week to collect points. Then come, an occasion, one day, that occasion, you can really wear beautiful watches out there. Really, it doesn't look really classy at all. I agree with Tepo 100%. This is Anne.
Morning, Clement. I totally disagree with your previous caller, the fashion advisor. These Apple Watches or smartwatches, they all have different wristbands to sort of match the look you're going with. And the most important thing is the convenience of having your smartwatch with you. You can check your messages, you can see who's calling, you can decline calls, you can switch off alarms, there's so much you can do. And while doing all of that, you are tracking your health levels. So I always wear it, whether it's with a suit, whether it's with my swimming shorts, whether it's with, you name it, my Apple Watch is always on. Thanks.
You can check your messages, you can answer some calls. It's just so convenient, man. I really get where some people who are insisting on this are coming from. Gwen says, Clement, I agree with Tepo. Apple Watch is a fitness watch. Are people going to the gym wearing a suit? No. Use your phone to track steps while wearing a suit. Another one says, Clement, if the Apple Watch had a hem's leather strap, then sure. Somebody else says, hi Clement, I agree with Tepo there. I have a dress, watch black or brown, match that with your belt and shoes. And then like Tepo, I try collecting watches for each occasion. Currently have 9 watches and I always go with those when I wear a suit. Dow says, Clement, I agree with Tepo. You have a smartwatch, sport watch, and a dress watch, and all of those fit for different outfits and different purposes.
Hi, I'm Lewis Hamilton. Victory demands everything, but the journey is never solo. My team carves the way, data and innovation are my compass. This is how today's champions are made.
Drive your success and trade like a champion. CFI, a global leading broker now in South Africa. Access over 15,000 instruments, advanced trading tools, 24/7 support, and superior trading services. Visit cfi.trade today. CFI Financial is an authorized financial services provider.
CFI, empower yourself.
Do you want to buy a Honda? Cars.coza. Toyota or Mahindra? Cars.coza. Do you Vanessa Cherry, kaas.koza. Suzuki or Mercedes, kaas.koza. Polo, Kia, Mitsubishi, Havel, Hyundai, Lamborghini, buy and sell, it's very easy. All you got to do is type cars.goza, cars.goza, cars.goza. Let's find what moves you. Cars.goza, cars.goza.
To walk the talk is to turn words into meaningful actions. And it's what we at 702 are committed to doing every day. We're also committed to following the rules set out by the Broadcasting Complaints Commission's Code of Conduct to give you balanced programming, fair comment, and accurate news. But if we stumble along the way and you feel we're not living up to the code, let us know on comment@702.co.za. And if after that you're still not happy, you can direct your complaint in writing to the Broadcasting Complaints Commission, PO Box 412365, Craig Hall 2024. For more, visit bccsa.co.za. The Sharing Space
on the Clement Manyathela Show.
702.
It's going up to 10 minutes before 12 o'clock. We're having a conversation this morning on our Sharing Space about how to wear a suit and how do you complement it with a watch. Should we be wearing our Apple Watches or any other sports watch for that matter when you're wearing a suit? Some people believe you still can because they still want to track their steps. Some people believe, well, maybe check and change the strap on the watch, but it just looks weird. Justice on Twitter system, and I saw the post and I reposted it. Phones track steps. I know that the watch has different steps, but it's better not to put on a watch when wearing a suit than a sports watch. So no sports watch for a suit. Kolela says, and how will we close the rings? God forbid you get a health scare. Forget your phone or need to urgently press a panic button without alarming a perpetrator. What then? And easy on that one. Paul says, I fully agree with Tsepo on that one. Wearing a suit with an Apple Watch or any sports watch. Alternatively, get a metal strap on that watch if you insist on wearing it. And then on your WhatsApps, here are some voice notes that have come through.
Morning, Clement. Look, let's be honest. The smartwatches, the sports watches, are fairly ugly. I mean, the only people who are calling in and saying you can wear them with the smart suit or a smart outfit are the people who use them. I use a Garmin watch daily because I rely completely on the health insights for tracking my body battery, my steps, my heart rate, and all the information it gives me back about my health and longevity. And I'm sure Apple users do the same, but they aren't very good looking. But I wear them daily and religiously, and I can't do without it. But yeah, it doesn't look great, let's be honest.
Clement. So towards your topic about a suit and an Apple Watch, firstly, Apple has now different bands that you can wear. So I've got a different band for whatever occasion. For if I'm going to gym or if I'm going to a function and I'm wearing a suit. So Apple has made different bands for all of that. But secondly, I just really believe that you can wear a suit anywhere you want. I've worn a suit and worn some very fashionable Nike sneakers, and I looked great. Simply as well. Thank you. Bye.
Short Clement. Look at it this way. President Cyril Ramaphosa always wears his Apple Watch with his suits. So if the president can do it, who am I not to do it? But in all fairness, though, it's your watch, it's your watch. I mean, you get people who wear suits with sneakers, or rather, like those cool-looking Air Jordans and All-Stars and whatever. So if, for me, it makes sense, fashion-wise, who's the next person to tell me how to rock my watch? It is my watch, under my watch, after all.
Hi, Clement, why don't we just take laptop bags and leave phones while we're at it? This is 2025. We're wearing suits with techies now. Oh, this is important, North Gaza.
So, Okay, I got you. So yeah, there are two sides to this. Yeah, but I agree that there are some people may see it as a fashion mismatch, right? That they've observed with formal clothes, but people now are just mixing things up. People are allowing their creativity to flow, even with how they dress up. So to the point that a few of you have made about people who wear suits with some Jordans, with some techies, you really can wear it with anything. So even with the watch, there are people who believe that, I can just pull that. And I'm still going to be comfortable. I'm still tracking my steps. I still have my panic button when I need it. I still have the convenience of checking my messages and maybe even answering my calls if I'm away from my phone. So why leave my Apple Watch or any other sports watch for that matter?
Yeah, all these watches, the smartwatches are very nice, very practical and so on. But when it comes to watches and a good watch, you cannot beat a classic.
As a Clement, as an alternative to smartwatches, obviously look at the bands and stuff, but a smart bracelet is quite, you can get those. You can get a pendulum for the girls and even for the guys, like a nice necklace that does a little smart thing that tracks your walking and all of that stuff. Also consider a smart ring. Those are getting cheaper and cheaper by the day. Tabis over here.
Clement, I am worried. Anyone who looks up to the president for fashion sense, I shame. That guy who called in and said the president wears a smartwatch, a suit. I'm worried for him, shame. If you're looking up to our president, I mean, look at the suits that our president wears. Yeah, I mean, they're just suits, they're not suits.
Aubrey Masango.
Weekday evenings,
8 to midnight.
London Harbour, 142 race-based laws.
Nonsense, actually. I took a close look at the laws that make up this list of 142. And the problem is it's based on a definition of race law, which is so loose and so wide, it's ridiculous. The example that's being cited repeatedly is the BEE legislation. The New York Times reporter called it laughable because they include a whole lot of laws. It's a real stretch to call them race laws.
Aubrey Masango.
8 to midnight on 702.
702.
So we did a thing, a full commitment kind of thing. We've partnered with Sixt to bring worldwide to your doorstep. So you see how that's a serious thing, because that's what you deserve. We know you're the GOAT, so premium it is. Premium service, premium vehicles, premium you, premium us. Sani Sixt is all about adding extra to ordinary. Extra reach, extra countries, so you can be extra premium worldwide. Be the greatest of all time and rent Sani Sixt.
You could be famous for DIY like that time you turned a barrel into a braai. Or you could be really famous for DIY with a little help from Chamberlain. Join us from 20 March to 6 April for our Really Famous for Hardware promotion and tap into 120 years of DIY know-how. Get 10% off Dulux paint mixing, explore the widest range of tools, building supplies and even siteware. And visit our newly renovated Waterkloof Glen branch. It's your one-stop DIY shop, and with click and collect, we mean that literally. Chamberlain, really famous for hardware since 1903.
Let's face it, in this country, small business owners wear many hats, and they wear them brilliantly. That's why MTN and 702 want to tip our hats to all the incredible SMEs of Gauteng for being such a valuable part of our communities and a vibrant force in SA's economy. In the 702 Small Business Awards, brought to you by MTN, because MTN is here to help grow their businesses and move them further. Go to primemediaplus.com now, enter your SME, or nominate a small business doing big things in the 702 Small Business Awards, brought to you by MTN. Today, we make moves. T's and C's and more on primemediaplus.com.
The Sharing Space
on the Clement Manyathela Show.
702.
Hey, Clemmy. I hate these fashionistas, man. 20 years ago, wearing a suit with the sneakers, you would have been laughed at. But no, I don't want to be told what to wear, what to do. As long as I'm doing the right thing that's legal, it's okay. Please, in your future session or program, can you discuss this thing of shaving? You know, I'm told I must shave every morning. Do you know how irritating that is? I hate shaving. Who came up with this thing of saying I must shave every morning? Why do I need to be told how I must look? For who? Aye, man.
Well, it's just advice, brother. Also, what do you do? Because that also matters, right? If you didn't want to shave and you go looking scruffy and you're meeting clients, and like some people do that. They're lawyers who walk in there confidently and haven't shaven, they haven't combed their hair. That's part of their look. If you are comfortable with it, sure. I mean, do you at the end of the day? I shave every second day because I just get irritated as soon as hair starts growing. So it depends. What works for you? What doesn't work for you? Mandy Winner, how are you doing?
I can contribute. I can't really.
Yeah, but you can contribute on sports watches.
Yes.
Do you own one? Do you wear that?
Yeah, so I wear my
With
Apple
a
Watch
dress?
all the time. I used to have a Garmin watch. And that's because of points and steps. And
So even when you're going to like a gala dinner where you are
no, then
your
I'll
heels and-
probably take it off for that.
Okay.
But I do own a fancy watch, but I
Yeah.
hardly ever wear it.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you could put that on
Like
if
a
you're going
dress
to
watch,
a gala,
yeah.
a dress watch, yeah. Well, but some
I'll
of us
probably
do
wear
wear
nothing.
these at even with your tuxedo or your suit.
No, I think you've got to change it.
What's coming up on the midday report?
Joe McMahon, Dada Morero. I did not see what watch he was wearing today. On the renaming of Santon Drive, denying of paying of influencers. He's been having a briefing of that. 2 suspects in court for the Soshanguve murders. Musi Maimane will speak to us about BOSA's conditions to support an ANC budget. The ANC's asked to...
Yeah, they're going after all these smaller
everyone.
parties.
Yeah, they're going after
Shame.
Action SA, they're going after BOSA, they're going after everyone to try and get support. The Veterinary Association is concerned about US aid being pulled. And then we now know who's going to be on the Bok jersey. It's going to be FNB. So they were on the back, so I thought that they would move them to the front. And our Pick and Pay will be on the back.
Okay, that's fascinating because I was always wondering which brands are going to come forth. All right, that's the midday report coming up with Mandy Winner. Thank you so much for listening to the show. We'll be back with you tomorrow between 9 and 12. If you are in KwaZulu-Natal, please come and say hi. We're going to be in West Town tomorrow. There's a brand new mall that is being launched there. So we're going to be hosting our show from there between 9 and 12 o'clock. Have a beautiful day, my friends. Bye-bye.
This is EWN.
Good afternoon. I'm Mbali Dlamini. Preparations are underway for a memorial service for the 6 community safety patrollers who were killed in Soshanguve. The patrollers came under attack at the Marimi informal settlement on Saturday morning. 4 others are still in hospital under police guard while investigations continue. The Gauteng government and the city of Tshwane will also be engaging residents at a community imbizo which will be preceded by that memorial service. The remembrance service is taking place as 2 suspects arrested in connection with the attack made an appearance in the Pretoria North Magistrates Court today. Hawks spokesperson Christopher Singo says the suspects have been linked to other crimes.
According to the information, the suspects are allegedly linked to murders and house robberies that occurred on 21 February 2025.
Johannesburg Mayor Dada Morero has urged political parties to practice diplomatic sensitivity when raising frustrations over the proposed renaming of Santon Drive. The bid to rename the road to Leila Khalid Drive is currently in the consultation process.